It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 11th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill's Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. You're waking up to get after it, to go run that business, to go make a difference in your community, to take care of the kids. You are the go-getters, and we're so proud and honored to have you on the Jeff and Bill Show. So feel free to join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. We got an absolutely jam-packed show for you today. Coming up in just a second, we're going to talk about the CBP One app and how it's reversed course. Time to go home. Leave now, the Trump administration repurposing the controversial CBP One app to encourage self-deportations. Well, we want to take advantage of it. We'll talk about that. Ian Escalante, executive director of RMGO, is going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. Following that, Matt Sharp, ADF senior counsel. Big case coming from Colorado. This is a case that I actually fought at the U.S. Capitol on. I know the bill. I was one of the few to testify against this bill. I knew this was a violation of our U.S. Constitution, and now this law is heading to the U.S. Supreme Court. We're going to talk in the 7 o'clock hour all about that. Columbia student being deported for his free speech or because of his violent rhetoric and threat to Jewish students. We'll be talking about that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then one of the greatest columnists, one of my must-reads in the Gazette every single week is Jimmy Sengenberger. He's going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour to talk his latest two articles. One having to do with the CU regent that is possibly using her position to advance her own financial interests from the state. We'll talk about that. Plus, he's got a latest one coming out on Denver Public Schools and their lawsuit against ICE. So, tons of news to talk about today. What we're missing, though, is your voice. So pick up the phone, join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Now it's time for a little Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jeff. Happy Tuesday, Jeff and Billy. 34 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, U.S. and Ukrainian officials are holding talks today in Saudi Arabia in an attempt to get a ceasefire in the war with U.S. With Russia. I guess I could say U.S., but with Russia stopped. The start of the talks, which is not being attended by Ukrainian President Zelensky, came just hours after Kiev launched its largest drone attack on Russia to date, reportedly sending more than 330 drones into the country today. What are they doing? Stop. Trump is trying to end the war. For the love of God, these are the globalists handling Zelensky, trying to keep this war alive and rope us in and keep the chaos going. There was a major tech outage in our country on Monday. Elon with Larry Kudlow.
There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced. Yes. It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries expects Democrats to vote against the spending bill proposed by Republicans. Representative Scott Perry from PA was on with Stegall this morning and says the CR stops and cuts spending for 6 months. There's a lot of garbage in it, yes, and this is the best option for America.
That's correct. It's because everything is offset. Like, for instance, we're going to add more money to home, and where's that money coming from? There's a slush fund in the Commerce Department. We're taking that. We're taking money from the IRS expansion. So anything that is increased in it is offset, and it's offset more than it's increased. So it's actually a reduction in spending.
DJT calling on Congress to restore his 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, specifically his bonus depreciation provision. Trump's policy, which allowed businesses to immediately deduct expenses for investments in depreciating assets, was not renewed under Biden. What a shocker. Meaning it will be phased out by 2027 if Congress fails to take action. The stock market is having its worst start to a presidential term since 2009 with Barack Obama. According to Dow Jones market data, stocks suffered their weakest first 50 days of a presidency since Barry's first term. Economist Kathy Wood knows that we're going to go through some of these challenges on Wall Street, but predicts success for Trump, Elon, Doge, and the 47 administration.
Elon is relentless, and he's got a boss who's also relentless. So I do think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to drive huge increases in productivity as well. So Reagan Revolution, I think this revolution will dwarf the Reagan Revolution.
InfoWars top writer, reporter Jamie White was murdered outside his home in southeast Austin on Sunday night. Alex Jones.
He was up here last night working late during the Sunday show and after it. And we even have his last post on X where he responded to Elon Musk. Jamie was murdered last night outside of his home, just a few miles away from our studios.
There could be a lot to this one. Absolutely horrific, the investigation underway. The former town clerk of Lakeside is pleading guilty to embezzlement charges. 51-year-old Brenda Hamilton was facing 10 criminal charges following a grand jury indictment last year. She accepted a deal that saw her plead guilty to one count of embezzlement of property in exchange for dropping the other 9 charges. 3 people are dead after a medical helicopter crashed in rural Mississippi. The Madison County Sheriff's Office says the chopper went down in a densely wooded area near the Natchez Trace. The FAA is investigating. And what in the world? New video of Kamala Khan. I don't know when this happened, but I've never heard it. Are you kidding me? What the?
So I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
That's the consumer behavior.
And that's right, but here's the thing. At what point do we also uplift and highlight the consumer's right to also expect, and you can debate with me if it should be a right, I think it should, to expect that the innovation would also be weighted in terms of solving their everyday problems, which are beyond my craving for Doritos. Whatever, and I know the work is happening around, the scientific discoveries, for example, to cure long-standing diseases. But I'm going to throw out another one. And you all, again, please get back to me any information you have. I would love it if there would be an investment of resources in solving the affordable housing issue in America.
Oh, my. I don't know how much dope she was smoking.
She goes from Doritos to a new consumer right that she wants to put into law that the products we buy would get better? Is that what she says?
I could
and then she gets into housing?
Yes. And then all of a sudden she shifts gears.
I know
to
it's
housing.
early, but I was trying to do my best to follow that.
Oh, my God. I've listened to it like 20 times. I have no idea.
A consumer right for product improvement, I think is what she said.
Yeah, and she was
And you're going to put that into law? Like the businesses are somehow have to improve their products regularly, or it's a violation of someone's rights?
Oh, man. You haven't heard that, right? No. I mean, that's got to be new.
No, but my goodness, like sometimes things are just great the way they are. I don't need In-N-Out to improve the burger.
Exactly.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's perfect the way it is.
Oh, my God.
Someone's going to sue it. I have a right. I have a right for you to improve it. I think that's what I heard, but I don't know.
That's what I kind of heard, I guess.
And that was the Democrat nominee for president.
Yeah, we were one shake away.
Yeah,
from her just totally destroying the free world, honestly.
And having to deal with that for 4 years.
Dude, we may not survive 4 years if she was in there.
And the critique right now is Trump's firing federal workers too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Avalanche shut out the Blackhawks. Nuggets beat the 3-0, and the Nuggets beat the Thunder 140-127. Great defense in that game. 32 in Brighton, 33 in Littleton, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
The innovation would also be weighted in terms of solving their everyday problems, which are beyond my craving for Doritos.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Very nice spring-like weather for Denver in the Front Range as we go through today and tomorrow and into the beginnings of Thursday. Temperatures will be quite comfortable. 60s for highs, lows at night, mid to upper 30s. A mix of high clouds and sunshine. Enjoy. Thursday night into Friday and Saturday, though, it will trend quite a bit colder. A Pacific storm will race through Colorado quickly, bringing snow to the mountains and rain and snow showers to the Front Range Thursday night through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. He's right there with us on the values, guys. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case, the other attorneys, the insurance companies. You want somebody with a stellar record that first and foremost puts you and justice ahead of everything else. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. He's a real winner in the courtroom. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law, so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. I'll give it to you again, 303-770-5551. Or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. All right, DHS rolling out a CBP home app update. Leave now. Trump admin repurposes the controversial app to encourage self-deportations. The Trump administration, this is from Fox News, is rolling out a new app to replace the controversial CBP One app with the new replacement designed to facilitate self-deportation of illegal immigrants. The Department of Homeland Security is announcing the CBP Home One app, which will launch with a self-deportation reporting feature for those in the country illegally. It replaces the previous one, which was expanded by the Biden administration to allow migrants to schedule appointments at ports of entry to be paroled into the United States. Hundreds of thousands were paroled into the U.S. as a result. The Trump administration has ended the ability of the app for that particular purpose. The CBP One app will update to the new CBP Home app. And the little app description has changed, where the arrow coming up says red, the arrow going down south now says blue. The Biden administration exploited the CBP One app to allow more than 1 million aliens to illegally enter the United States. With the launching of the CBP Home app, we are restoring integrity to our immigration system, said Kristi Noem. The app allows aliens to, quote, submit intent to depart, unquote, and submit information regarding their intent to leave the United States. They can also provide information to verify they have left the United States, a function limited to those who were paroled into the U.S. It will now give aliens the option to leave home and self-deport, so they may still have the opportunity to return legally in the future and live the American dream. If they don't, we will find them, we will deport them, and they will never be able to return, Noem said. So that's the question I have for you, Bill, and for our listeners. All right, so they got this new app. And if you use the app and you tell the government that you're going to leave, you get a chance to get back in line the right way and come to America the right way. But if they catch you here illegally and have to deport you, the Trump administration saying you won't get the option in the future. Is this enough of an incentive to encourage self-deportation? Do you think people will use the app, Bill?
No, I don't see the incentive to. What would be the reason to use the app? I agree that the Biden administration used what was supposed to be something for transportation in order to bring help truckers and people like that to bring goods and services into the U.S. That's normally, I believe, where it started. And yeah, they expanded it. I disagree with Kristi Noem saying that the Biden administration illegally allowed people to use it, or, you let people illegally gain access to the U.S. through it, because, we can talk about whether it should have been used this way or not. It was to set appointments for asylum. And then they would have to have that appointment in theory and then get into the U.S. It wasn't just like fill out stuff on the app and then you're good to go like you're entering Disneyland. So I fail to see why you would use this to self-deport. And the reason being is you would have to trust what Donald Trump and the government says about letting you back into the U.S. if you try the legal path.
Because your name's now on a list.
Yeah, but I don't see any reason to trust what they're saying. And the reason I say that is because in the previous Trump administration, we negotiated the USMCA. And now Trump's back in office in weeks, tore that thing up. That was an agreement that he signed. We've signed and been long partners in NATO. He's trying to pull us out of NATO. So the idea is, why should you trust anything that the government says is going to happen, even his deal on tariffs, up and down and up and down and up and down. We're going to put tariffs on. No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. How do we know? How do we know in 6 months from now, Donald Trump may just say, no, anybody that's self-deported, you're not allowed back in the U.S. because you broke our laws in the first place. That's the idea. Is where's the trust?
The risk, though, is if you get deported because you get caught doing something, your name's now on a very serious list. And that list is you've been caught in this country illegally, and if you ever then try to get into line and do it the right way, you're not going to be allowed to do it. You don't think that's incentive enough?
No, because why do we trust that list is going to prevent you from ever getting back into the U.S. again? Because what I'm saying is that's a purview of this administration. When you have a Democrat back in office, do you think that's going to hold? No. I have no confidence that this list of never, ever, 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 ever allow these people back into the U.S. is going to hold under a Democrat administration. If there's nothing that is legislatively done, there's no reason why a Democrat administration can't come in and go erase. That's the issue. Is the bargain that is leveraged through this app is paper thin. Now, there may be some people that take it saying, well, I will do this so that I can get back in line, but there's nothing preventing these people ever from signing up and trying to get back into the U.S. ever again. This is just under this window of 4 years. And if you have another administration that comes in, it could even be another Republican administration that comes in and erases this. It doesn't have to be a Democrat. But this is just what happens right now for the next 4 years. So I'm unsure why to trust this. It gets a lot of fanfare, and there are a lot of people in MAGA high-fiving each other and thinking this is a great idea. Okay,
well, I think so. There's 3 routes. This is what I see. Okay, 3 routes. Correct me if you think there's more. First route, you follow this app. Okay, you sign up for it. You get out of this country. Maybe even the app helps facilitate you heading home, and you're like, I'm going to follow the rules on this app. Okay, that's one. Okay,
Yeah.
Step 2 is I'm not going to follow this app because I don't want my name on this list. So I'm going to live here in this country illegally and keep my head down and just hope for the best. Okay, that's step 2. The risk being you end up on the list of actually being deported. And if you are actually deported, then your name is on a separate list. That's list number 2, that you were caught in this country illegally and deported. Okay?
Yeah.
Option 3 is to just leave quietly. Right? You got up here in this country one way or the other without telling anybody. You can get home without telling anybody. What do you think out of those 3? Let's say you're here illegally. Which one of those 3 options is the best, you think?
I don't know. It depends, because if I use the app in the first place to get into the U.S., then in theory, I have asylum, and that would have to be revoked. There'd have to be a mechanism in order to pull back onto that. So if I had applied through asylum through the app and was granted asylum, or temporary,
you're just going to wait the 10 years or so and see what happens.
Wait it out and see what happens as far as what happens with asylum.
So I guess that's the 4th option, right? So you use the app already the way it was intended, or I guess not the way it was intended, the way it was under the Biden administration. You used it under the Biden administration. You've claimed asylum. I feel like everybody claimed asylum when they got up here because it was a loophole they abused. But regardless, you got 10 years before the court's going to figure it out.
Yeah, and that wait has been made even longer because some of what Trump and Doge have done in the first few weeks has been fire some of those immigration attorneys and judges and lawyers. So the wait and the processing system is now longer than it was when Trump came into office. So we have a longer wait, we have a longer protracted process, and we have less people working on it. So it's going to take a longer, even if you wanted to, in theory, some of these people there'd have to be adjudication process before deporting them. That's like the Palestinian student that we're going to talk about later, the guy that was the graduate student at Columbia. There probably needs to be some sort of a process. You can't just pick him up and say, we're throwing out because X, Y, and Z. There probably has to be some sort of a process in there. And that would be the issue, is what's that process look like? So this, to me, it's a lot of fanfare. But I think that it is going to be minuscule as far as the actual impact on what happens as far as immigration.
What's your overall thought on self-deportation? If I was here illegally and I was on nobody's list, right? I got up here quietly, and now I'm dealing with the Trump administration, at least for 4 years. I would quietly go home.
Depends on how you're here and why you're here and what's going on here. Because if you have and are using somebody else's fake Social Security number, they may not find you. They might not have any idea about that.
That's a big gamble with Tom Homan.
Not necessarily. Because the idea, and this is the idea, is I understand the big gamble, but right now we have seen that numbers. Now, while the border, we're having much fewer interactions and much fewer crossings.
95%.
Yeah, but what we're not seeing is these millions of alleged illegals that are here being deported. The numbers are down compared to what you saw in the Biden administration and the Obama administration. So the previous two administrations that bookend Trump, we have fewer deportations as far as numbers. I'm just saying, as a whole, yes, first 50 days. They have fewer numbers in the first 50 days in the Obama administration and the Biden administration, from what I've seen. Their numbers are lower. So we're not finding the millions. And if I'm here and they're not finding the millions, and so far I've been flying under the radar, I may take the chance. I may actually take the chance because it might be, especially if I'm not necessarily from Mexico, the idea of getting all the way back home and then getting back in the line and trying to apply. If I've been skating under the, under the system so far, and if even I have an employer that's paying me under the table as far as cash, that employer is taking the risk. Yeah, I may go ahead and keep doing it, and especially if I'm here under false paperwork. If I've been able to get false paperwork and stay here, yeah, I'm probably staying here and just going to take the chance and see if they can find me. Because the idea being, if they throw me out, okay, they throw me out, but I don't necessarily think that long-term list of, we caught you and now you're going to put on this list that no one's going to let you back in, when we have a new administration, that can change. So you're just waiting out 4 years.
That's a big gamble, because I think the thinking of the American people, as well as changing on this, it was just so many illegal immigrants, right? You've seen churches change on this. You don't have the same effort to hide illegals that you saw under the first Trump administration, because I think people were tired of it. It was so many people. It's a big risk. It's a big gamble now to stay in this country illegally when not only the Trump administration, but the American people have had enough. I would go home. Go home, get in line, do it the right way. Once you get here, you go through the naturalization process. My goodness, the American people love you. And they want you to be a part of this grand experiment that we're doing in this country.
They don't.
Of course.
They don't.
Have you ever been Republicans, Democrats? They always love those naturalization processes.
Well,
those are great.
The ceremony, yeah, but afterwards, no, not necessarily. And the idea being the 10 years and maybe longer is the amount of time that you're going to wait. And that's the thing, is we keep talking about, you got to wait for 10 years, a decade. Of your life.
And if you want to set up your kids and grandchildren well, if you want to start that generational success, you need to do it the right way and follow the process.
But if your kids are 13, by the time you get here, they're 23. A generational success is gone at that point.
No,
they're the new generation. They should be in line. The 13-year-old should be the one applying. This is why we have the problems with dreamers. Dreamers are running around going, I don't know where to belong. My parents came here illegally. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm American.
I know, but what I'm saying is
stuff.
this. If you're in a country and you're trying to apply and your kids are 13 or 12 right now, by the time you get through the decade of a process, they're 23, 22. They're already adults at that point. You bringing your kids a better life is inconsequential at that point, because your kids, they're adults. You're not going to be able to bring them in with you now.
Oh, I totally disagree.
No,
Take responsibility now and set your children and grandchildren up for
But Jeff, that's chain migration.
Success.
That's chain migration, which the GOP is mostly against. The idea of someone in here that's an adult getting citizenship and then bringing in their relatives. And once your kids become adults, they're no longer considered children, and they're now those relatives that have to get in here
through the process
through chain migration. I know.
And you've helped set them up to go through the process, running them up here illegally and dropping them in as dreamers.
But let's go back to
your
original.
Horrible.
But let's go back to your original point.
Decision.
Let's go back to your original point. Your original point was setting your children up in America for generational wealth, and I'm giving you an example.
Right.
If your kids are too old, the wait time discourages you from doing that, because you can't bring your kids and you can't give them the gift. Your kids have to go through the process. So you were saying you need to start your kids' process when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. And if that's the argument, fine. We can talk about it. But we can't. There's a very limited window of opportunity where you're saying these people are allowed to bring their kids in order to get this generational access. And that would be when your kids are born. Because if you start any further than 2 or 3 years of age, chances are they may not be old enough. They may age out of the system by the time you get here. Again, our system is a disincentive
is
for legal
become a
information.
dreamer, and that sets your kids up for failure.
Not necessarily.
Because
There's dreamers that have lots of success here in the U.S. right now. I disagree that's failure.
Really? You think that the immigration situation that dreamers are set up in is a good situation for those kids?
No, but I believe it's
better.
better.
But that's what I was saying.
No. You said setting them up. You're saying
right. It is setting them up for failure.
No, it isn't. I'm saying
100%
better than they are back home in theory, and they're here, and they do have a path.
When
in some
the
cases,
other
as far as
alternative is to
legalization.
follow the rules. The other alternative is to follow the rules and to set them up for success.
So you're a 5-year-old is going to apply for. We're not going to allow a 5-year-old to independently apply for
That's not what I'm
immigration
saying. I'm talking
services.
about the parents.
I
I'm
know.
talking about the parents.
I know.
And when the
And when it
parents
takes a decade,
show
it's a
up
disincentive.
illegally with their kids, they're setting those kids up for failure, and they should be held responsible for that.
No, I disagree. I disagree with your premise that they're setting up for failure. I understand the problems, but the issue is waiting 10 years is a disincentive to follow the rules. It takes too long. You're not going to wait 10 years in order to get it. And that's the issue. Is if the process was truncated,
issue.
yes, it is.
No, it's not the issue.
The issue is it takes too long. That's why we have
they're
illegal
willing to
immigration.
break the law.
No,
100%. That's the issue.
No, I totally disagree because the issue is how our system is set up. It's a disincentive to actually follow the rules because it takes too long. If you're trying to rescue and you're trying to set your kids up for success, the idea it just takes way too long. If they get to a certain age,
so as a parent, what you're sending the message to your kids is that it's really quite hard. So the easier thing to do is to break the law. Come follow me, kids. Let's cross the border.
Yeah. That's what we are saying in America. Yes, that we are making the process so long and so hard.
Why are you putting that on America? That's on them.
No, hang on.
That's on the parents of the illegal immigrants.
Who set up the process? We did. We made the rules and we set the process. And if the process, by formation of the process,
Bill, we've had John Fabricatore in here lots of times. There's nothing wrong with the process. He confirms that over and over again.
But he also has confirmed that our long immigration process is an encouragement for illegal immigration.
If you're the type of person, when things get hard, finds it easier to break the law.
Oh, so when things get hard, I'm supposed to wait 10 years?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Be a responsible person.
Yeah.
Instead, we're literally allowing the most irresponsible people in because things, quote, are hard.
No, not necessarily the most irresponsible. Because, again, these are people that took and went thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, which is a journey that many Americans wouldn't take. How many Americans would load a backpack today and walk to Seattle?
All of our ancestors did that, Bill.
No.
They all got on boats and came to this country.
What was the statement?
And they followed the rules
Jeff,
and the processes to do so.
There weren't any rules when our parents came across on boats.
That's not true.
No, the people showed up at Ellis Island at the founding of this country and just walked in. There wasn't any immigration process.
They had to go.
For years.
They had to sit on boats and go through the entire health inspections.
For years, it was
and
just
if they weren't contributors to society, they were not allowed in.
For years, if you just made it to the shore, you were allowed in. That was fine. So but again, when I started my statement, it was today, and you go back to our ancestors. I'm talking about today. How many Americans today would load a backpack and walk to Seattle? That's what I'm talking about. That's it. It is a disincentive for legal immigration. Until we change that process, we are going to continue to see.
That is not a justification for illegal immigration.
I'm not justifying. I'm telling you why it exists. Why it exists. I'm not sitting here and justifying that people should be crossing it, but I'm telling you that's why it exists. Because our process is too slow and too
because
cumbersome.
They're irresponsible.
No,
all right.
It's too cumbersome and too slow.
Join the conversation if you like. What would you do if you were in the situation? You're here illegally. Would you quietly go back? Would you live here quietly and hope you don't get busted and ended up on a list? To Kristi Noem's point, you end up on that list. You're never coming back legally. You won't ever be allowed to come to this country the right way. Or do you use this leave now new CB Home One app. We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. Would love to hear from you. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Leave now! A headline from Fox News. Trump administration repurposing the controversial CBP One app to encourage self-deportations. Would you take advantage of this? Boy, the text messages are hot on this one. Rob in Tennessee, legal immigration exists because the penalty for doing so has been reduced to almost nothing until now. Yes, very, very true. Andrew, the app change, like most so far in Trump 2.0, seems to be more about trolling than actually fixing something. I'm hopeful they'll actually start making valuable changes, but so far it just seems like a bunch of jerk moves to get Jeff and Blake all excited, like some 14-year-old watching their friends pick on another kid. Oh, we're not picking on other kids, Andrew. We're excited that laws are actually being implemented in this country. Jason in Denver. Let's see. Executive orders have been problematic for a long term. I agree with Bill. If the new administration comes in, the list will end up in the Epstein file. Yeah, I mean, the question is, what do you do at this point? And what do you expect illegal immigrants to do? For me, I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of mass deportations, we're not going to see a lot of self-deportations until you see mass deportations and you see penalty for businesses. Okay? Those are the two requirements. The penalties for businesses that hire illegal immigrants, so you shut off the ability for them to get paid. That's step one. And then step two is you have to see strong enough effort on these mass deportations. Now, I think they've gone quiet because when they initially tried to implement Operation Aurora, and I watched an interview with Kristi Noem yesterday about this, the tip-offs were coming internally. And so what ICE is now doing are polygraphs across the board for their employees to make sure that those ICE agents are committed to Donald Trump's agenda and to implementing our immigration laws. So I think they're kind of cleaning house right now, but I fully expect Tom Homan to come back and to come back roaring, because that was the mandate from the American people in this election, probably more so than anything else, that they want to see our immigration laws enforced. They want mass deportations, and that's what they expect to see. So you implement those two, and you have somebody here that's illegally, that has more challenges getting paid and is watching mass deportations taking place. I think then you'll see the self-deportations. But join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. I want to talk to you about my friends at the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Had lunch there yesterday with friends. Having lunch there again today with friends. I love this restaurant. I'll eat there every day. I love the people there, the staff, the folks that welcome you in. The service is great, but the best part is the food. It's healthy, and it's maha. And as conservatives, what we're talking about with maha is not eating bland wafers. We're talking about quality food, right? That's locally sourced. That is Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. Great people. I love this restaurant with 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? St. Patrick's Day is coming up. What are your plans? Make sure it includes the Irish Feast, a 3-day celebration at Black Eyed Pea. Saturday, March 15th to Monday, the 17th, they'll have corned beef and cabbage, slow cooked overnight, served with 2 sides. Or you can order the traditional pork bangers and mashed potatoes. They'll have Irish pie and shepherd's pie. And then here's my favorite, a Reuben with sliced corned beef, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and Thousand Island dressing on toasted marble rye. My mouth is watering even thinking about it right now. So many choices and all so good. Traditional Irish cheer is available as well, so don't miss the Irish Feast at the Black Eyed Pea. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Let them do the cooking for you and keep it here in Colorado, supporting good, patriotic Colorado business owners. So visit the Black Eyed Pea near you, I'll be there after lunch. After the show for lunch. Black Eyed Pea. Great friends of this show, and we're grateful for Steve and Michelle. All right, we'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, it's Tuesday morning. I think people are starting to recover from the daylight savings. But, Bill, let's inject a little bit of joy into their lives this morning with some You Choose the News.
All righty, this is that time of the morning where we get a little silly. We take our responsibilities and throw them out the window. This is You Choose the News, America's favorite fake radio news game show. I spent moments this morning scouring the interwebs for really funny stories about us humans, giving them more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show, because nobody in charge has any idea we are this irresponsible with valuable airtime. They don't wake up until 7 o'clock, so shh, this is just a giant secret. Alrighty. Gentlemen, Blake Olson joining us in the newsroom, Jeff Hunt in the studio. Here are your stories, sirs. Headline number 1, computer bias. Headline number 2, want some more? Headline number 3, dirt cheap or dirt rich? And number 4 is, could it be jealousy? Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Let's do some computer bias.
Yes, could this be computer bias? A new study has found that ChatGPT can actually respond to mindfulness-based strategies because chatbots can get anxiety when given disturbing information. This increases the likelihood of the AI bots responding with bias, hate, and a whole bunch of other stuff. AI chatbots have trouble coping with all of your stupid questions all the time, and they found that these artificial minds then exhibit their version of stress. And what they do then is become much more likely to give responses that reflect racist, sexist, angry biases. Basically, you talk about AI hallucinations. When the AI chatbot is feeling anxiety, it's more likely to invent fake stuff and give you fake reasons. So yeah, they're working on mindfulness for chatbots. Yes, so,
good work.
All the problems of humanity heading into the computers as well.
Exactly. We are giving our problems to them because they're using our stuff to learn from. They're learning very well. So yeah,
original sin.
Exactly.
Very powerful.
Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Want some more? Dirt cheap or dirt rich? Or could it be jealousy?
Want some more.
Yeah, want some more. A New York resident is under investigation right now because he may actually be the reason of the fire that started on Long Island. Suffolk County Police Commissioner Kevin Catalina said the operating theory right now is someone was trying to make s'mores. Yes, a resident used cardboard to start a fire to make s'mores, and the fire got out of control. Because of the high winds, the embers flew into nearby stuff that was very, very flammable. The fire did ignite portions of the backyard. The area goes up in fire, and so, yes, they're saying s'mores is probably the reason. Nicely done. Nice fire type. So, yeah, they're saying the fire was probably because some dude just wanted to get his grub on. Yeah, that's great.
One of those marshmallows.
Yeah, it's going to make you feel so much better when, like, cause of fire, dude was hungry. That's not good. I'm sure that's not covered by insurance.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think they cover that. I don't think s'mores is going to be on your deductible. Yeah, it's not it.
Maybe the chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so we got to ask a s'mores question here really quickly. Blake, so when you're doing the s'mores, marshmallow, very important. Marshmallow. What do you like to see in the marshmallow? Is it just a little bit burnt? Is it golden brown? Do you burn it to a crisp? Because that's the way that you change s'mores personally. How do you do your s'mores?
Oh, just, barely burnt. Not quite burnt.
There we go.
A little brownish.
Let's see if Jeff's an actual human.
Right,
Jeff, what do you do with your s'mores?
We've camped sometimes 50 days a year.
Yeah.
So we are s'mores experts. The best way to do it is you need to warm it so that the inside's gooey, and then you crisp the outside so it's crunchy.
He didn't answer the question. Is it golden brown? Is it burnt?
It's both. It's both. It's golden brown on the inside and then crispy brown on the outside.
So he's burning the outside. He's
yes.
one of those.
Yeah.
He's one of those, the black and eating the char.
It's a combination of both, and it's perfect.
I'm not sure about that one. I'm more of the golden brown, the idea. Okay, now here's the other big question. Yeah, now, what are you guys using? Do you go and do you do the old whittle the sticks down, or do you bring your own sticks, or what do you guys use to...
Dude, we got our whole setup, man.
He bought sticks.
We have these metal poker things.
Metal?
Oh, yeah.
That transfers heat.
With handles. It's got handles on it and all that stuff.
I'm not putting something in metal and touching the fire. Seems like a bad idea. Okay.
I like the wood sticks.
Yeah, me too. I think you have to make it or it doesn't taste the same. Okay, final choice this morning, Jeff. Dirt cheap or dirt rich, or could it be jealousy?
Dirt rich.
Dirt cheap or dirt rich? One of the most unexpected trends right now to hit the online marketplace in China is dirt. Soil claiming to be sourced from outside major banks with a promise to make you wealthy. For $120, you can buy soil that is taken from plants and other places around very popular banks in China. They send it to you, and you're supposed to get rich because you have the soil in your house.
I saw you could buy Coors Field soil, too. Who does that stuff? I don't know.
No idea.
Weird. All right.
Very
We've
weird.
got
That's the
Ian
end.
Escalante up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up in just a second, we're going to talk with Ian Escalante about new changes and amendments to Senate Bill 3 down at the Colorado State Capitol. This is the big gun grab introduced by Tom Sullivan down there. Now they want to run the licensing in order to purchase a firearm through the hunting division of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. It is getting crazy. And they're doing it so they can move it away from Tabor. This is a wild new development in this bill. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to talk to Ian in just a second. But now, let's check in with the great Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
All right, Jeff, thanks a lot. And Billy, 33 and cloudy Tuesday morning in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced.
Yes.
It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
That's interesting. U.S. and Ukrainian officials holding peace talks in Saudi Arabia today. DJT Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says representatives of both countries will work to create a framework for an initial ceasefire and a peace agreement with Russia. Today's talks followed what's being called Ukraine's largest drone attack on Russia to date, with more than 330 drones sent into the country. Stop already. You're already losing. We're trying to end this war, and all you need to understand right now is the globalists trying to start World War III, and Zelensky does whatever they tell him to do. The continuing resolution full of garbage, but the CR is the best route to getting the dirty work done in 6 months. Hold your nose for half a year so the real cuts can begin. It will actually stop and cut spending for 6 months.
That's correct. It's because everything is offset. Like, for instance, we're going to add more money to home, and where's that money coming from? There's a slush fund in the Commerce Department. We're taking that. We're taking money from the IRS expansion. So anything that is increased in it is offset, and it's offset more than it's increased. So it's actually a reduction in spending.
Pennsylvania's Scott Perry on Stegall a few hours ago right here on 710 KNUS. InfoWars top writer reporter Jamie White was murdered outside his home in southeast Austin on Sunday night. Alex Jones.
He was up here last night working late during the Sunday show and after it. And we even have his last post on X where he responded to Elon Musk. Jamie was murdered last night outside of his home, just a few miles away from our studios.
There could be a lot to that story. Absolutely horrific. Horrible. Chris Cuomo on with Tucker Carlson on Monday. Tucker drops a bomb. So we haven't heard from Kash Patel at all. That's been disappointing for me. Not that we won't soon, but we haven't seen or heard anything new on the Epstein story, of course, and JFK, all the stuff. And Tucker knows who's leading the intimidation from Congress.
If you watch this, in my case, for the same as you, 35 years, watching the stuff carefully, and somebody, gets into office, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and then like 5 days later, they're like, well, actually, someone has called that person to say, there's something you didn't know. Here are the consequences of doing that. Someone has applied very serious pressure on this person. Pressure so serious that that person is willing to humiliate himself. What I brought to it was the knowledge that a member of the Senate Intel Committee, I'm not guessing, called over and said, you cannot appoint this person.
So why don't you expose that person, first of all, so we can start chasing after him?
Tom Cotton of Arkansas did that.
Tom Cotton?
Yes, correct.
And did you ask him?
I haven't. No, I haven't asked him.
What the hell's going on with you?
I'd like to.
Here we go again with Tom Cotton. Program to increase security and hospitality in Denver's Ballpark District is getting underway. More than a dozen street ambassadors began making their rounds Monday. The ambassadors will patrol about 40 blocks in the area around Coors Field between 6 in the morning and 11 at night. Ambassadors are unarmed and have received training to help them interact with members of the public and the homeless. The program is being funded by contributions to the area's General Improvement District. The Department of Education is warning about 60 colleges and universities to protect Jewish students or risk losing federal funds. In letters sent to schools across the country Monday, the department said that the Civil Rights Act requires students to have uninterrupted access to campus facilities and educational opportunities. Consumer debt hit $5 trillion as of January, according to the Federal Reserve. That's up slightly from the previous month, but still down about 0.5% compared to a year ago. Avalanche shut out the Blackhawks. The Nuggets beat the Thunder 140-127. That was great defense in that game. This one is ridiculous. Angel Reese, WNBA, says she's going to sit out if she's not paid more.
They're gonna get more. They probably gonna be making more than us. No, they are. I'm hurt. They are. Like, yeah. I've been in the meetings. They are. I need to get in the. I need to get in the field. You need to come to the meetings. I gotta get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, yeah, they don't give us. If y'all don't give us what we want, like, we sitting out. That's a possibility for real. Yeah.
They're talking about the younger players being paid more than them. They are subsidized by the NBA. Get over yourselves. God, this isn't the free market with the WNBA, okay? There's no demand. You're the supply. If you don't play, no one would care. Just ungrateful. Absolutely ungrateful. Jeez, getting paid to play basketball and nobody cares. 29 in Castle Pines, 30 in Lone Tree, 33 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
We're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you, you just watch.
Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Very nice spring-like weather for Denver in the Front Range as we go through today and tomorrow and into the beginnings of Thursday. Temperatures will be quite comfortable. 60s for highs, lows at night, mid to upper 30s. A mix of high clouds and sunshine. Enjoy. Thursday night into Friday and Saturday, though, it will trend quite a bit colder. A Pacific storm will race through Colorado quickly, bringing snow to the mountains and rain and snow showers to the Front Range Thursday night through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, there's a battle raging at the Colorado State Capitol. Democrats really, seriously going after your ability to arm yourself, purchase guns, exercise your Second Amendment rights, and down there fighting better than really anybody else to protect your Second Amendment rights is Ian Escalante, Executive Director of RMGO. Ian, give me an update. I watched one of your videos yesterday. Senate Bill 3 is now over in the House side, and we're getting some weird amendments over there. Give our listeners an update on what's happening down at the Colorado State Capitol.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, Jeff and Bill. Thank you all so much for having me on this morning. We have a crazy day ahead of us at the Colorado State Capitol. So today, Senate Bill 3, the monstrosity that first started out as a assault weapons ban 3.0, and then kind of morphed into this weird firearm owner ID card / permit to purchase scheme, has now morphed once again. So it seems like every time this thing comes up for a vote, it ends up morphing. And now what they're trying to do is turn this whole permitting scheme over to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, because Colorado Parks and Wildlife is an enterprise. So they're trying to completely circumvent Tabor, stick a continuing appropriation in this bill, and then allow the unelected CPW to not just issue these permits but also deny and revoke these permits if they think that you are a danger to your, quote-unquote, danger to yourself or others. In addition, they're not capping the fees, nor are they saying that these permits have to be issued in a certain period of time. So they're giving all this power to control who can purchase and own firearms to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Division, and we're going to be at their mercy should this bill pass.
Now, Ian Escalante, executive director of RMGO, I want to get just crystal clear on this. Is this, I mean, any firearm you want to purchase, you now have to go through this contrived system with CPW that's essentially a hunting license version card just to be able to purchase a gun, in addition to a 3-day waiting period, in addition to a background check, in addition to all that other stuff that we already do. They've now set up this system that you have to basically be approved through CPW in order to purchase a gun?
So not all guns, but most. So this bill still is going to cover specified semi-automatic firearms, which is pretty much every gas-powered semi-automatic firearm with a detachable magazine, more or less, including a lot of handguns.
Right, the
So not all,
Glock 9mm, those types of things, those guns.
That's, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the big thing here, and they're trying to say that those aren't going to be covered by this, but at the end of the day, all of this goes back, the buck stops with the Attorney General, because the Attorney General pretty much gets carte blanche in saying what guns are covered by this de facto ban and what guns aren't. And the worst thing about this is that it's not a hunting license. It is a completely new permit. It's not a hunting license, nor is it a concealed handgun permit. It is two completely new licenses. One is the firearm safety eligibility card, which you have to submit your fingerprints and join a registry with CBI just to get that card. And even if you are approved, the CPW can just not issue you your firearm safety eligibility card. Once you get that card, then you got to take 12 hours worth of courses, pass a test with 90% competency or better, then you get your permit to purchase, and then you can actually go and exercise your right, or what used to be your right, what's now your privilege.
But that's in addition to the concealed carry, which now has new requirements. So you're going to have to go through everything you just talked about. Then you want to carry it with you. You have to go through those, and that's a whole new regime, right? In addition to, I think it's an 8-hour class.
8 hours.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It is 8 hours.
Yeah, 8-hour classes. You now have to take a test there to pass that, in addition to a 3-day waiting period, in addition to a background check, all of that just to buy a gun and carry it in the state of Colorado.
It's quite unfortunate, and right now we're seeing this actually, Senate Bill 3's evil twins popping up all over the country. Washington State just passed a bill very, very similar to this. And in addition, New Mexico's bill is even taking this a step further and saying that it's an outright ban. And if you own a gas-operated firearm, you have to register it, or the government can come around and start confiscating.
And then Colorado's already increased taxes on ammunition that you want to buy. I mean, it is constant step after step after step to try to restrict your Second Amendment rights. And they think that somehow criminals are going to go, well, golly, this is a lot to go by. We just won't carry illegal guns. I mean, what? The only people that this is going to restrict are the people that are willing to go through the whole process.
Exactly. And I mean, this is, once again, part of the goal to drive conservatives and gun owners out of Colorado. this has been a part of the playbook for a while.
Ian Escalante, Executive Director of RMGO, you guys are hosting a rally today, and tell folks about that.
Sure. So my team and I are about to head right out to the Capitol, and we're going to be partnering with some other great groups to stand against this horrible piece of legislation, and we're going to be going in the Capitol to testify.
So people will be testifying down there. Now you have the Democrats control in the House, the Senate. Give us the read on, and this is already passed the Senate, but if it gets amended, it'll have to go back for another series of votes. But give me the read on the likeliness of this passing and Jared Polis signing it.
We really don't know. I mean, mainstream media is saying it's going to sail through the House. I'm not really sure about that. I mean, there's definitely a greater chance of it passing than not. But also at the same time, remember last year the assault weapons ban? They said that was going to be a slam dunk. That ended up only clearing by about 5 votes. Now we took back 3 House seats, so this is going to be razor thin because there are a lot of Democrats not on board with this. Should this new amendment that's going to move all this to CPW pass, then what's going to happen is it's going to have to go back to the Senate where they're going to have to concur with House amendments. So this thing is not even remotely close to being done or finished or close to the governor's desk. So we're going to keep fighting. We're not giving up. And hopefully we can keep the pressure up so that we don't have to be at the mercy of Jared Polis.
We're talking with Ian Escalante, he's the Executive Director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. If you want to take action, you can by going to rmgo.org. That's rmgo.org. You can sign up there to take legislative action, become a member, support the folks at RMGO. I'm a member of RMGO. This is a place where, or this is an organization that's down there working to protect your Second Amendment rights against this. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand, they're not going to stop here. They're not going to stop here. If you think that there's ever a bill where Democrats are going to go, all right, we've done it. We have passed everything that we think is necessary to protect gun violence, you're wrong. It will never, ever stop with them. Ian, explain to people why you have to draw a line in the sand and say, we can't let you continue to do this.
Absolutely. Well, the Second Amendment is the one that protects all others. It's the right that protects all others. And you see this happening over and over and over again in the General Assembly. Every year they go and take a chunk out of our Second Amendment rights. They go ahead and start trying their hand at something else. A perfect example of this is House Bill 1225. They're calling it the Freedom from Election Intimidation Act, where they're saying that you can't even carry a gun and talk about politics anymore. Otherwise, you're participating in election intimidation.
Unbelievable. And what are some of the other bills down there that you guys are facing?
Sure. So there's actually about 13 others that we're facing right now. One of them is a ban on adults 18 to 20 from purchasing ammunition. Another one is a bill that's pretty much going to strangle gun shows out of existence. They're looking to change the way that law enforcement agencies procure firearms from federal firearms licensee dealers. They're trying to mandate the state of Colorado accept all federal gun control money. They are also they tried to do a de facto hunting ban. That, thank God, was killed last week. They're really trying to put the screws to us here, man. And I mean, there's several others that it would take me the whole hour to explain them all. So I know, we're fighting hard. We're in about an hour and a half. We're going to be rallying at the Capitol, and we're going to be going in, and we're going to be getting ready to fight.
If you want to get legislative updates, if you want to join the effort to protect your Second Amendment rights, go to rmgo.org, become a member there, join up with them, get on their mailing list so that you're aware of what's happening down there. I've said this before. I'll say it again. When it comes to gun issues, there are 3 people in society that are at the table here. You have criminals, you have the government, and you have law-abiding citizens. Okay? Everything that our government is doing right now is geared towards taking the guns away of law-abiding citizens. There's not a single bill down there. There's not one bill where the government's going, you know who should have fewer guns? The government. Maybe not the government needs all the guns that it has. There's not, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but there's not a single bill that's ever been introduced down there that goes, let's take guns away from the government actors. Is there one down there right now?
So, I mean, you're not wrong about this, and any sort of bill that's pertaining to the government has to do with kneecapping law enforcement and not allowing them to be able to actually do their jobs and punish criminals. There is one good bill that's being pushed, and thankfully Governor Polis has endorsed it, and it's a bill at the very least to say if you steal a firearm, you're now going to be charged with a felony, but that's something that should have been done a long time ago. That's not some sort of novel reform. That's just basic common sense, where if you steal someone's means of protection, that you should pay a price and you should serve hard jail time. And fortunately, it looks like that bill is going to pass. Governor Polis has indicated that is his top priority gun bill from this session. So we will see, but again, it's 1 versus 14. The ratio here is so lopsided.
See, and that's Ryan Armagos' bill. That's a Republican-led bipartisan bill down there to actually punish people who steal guns. Okay, so we got one bill that punishes criminals who steal guns. We've got no bills that actually want to restrict government's growth of the weapons that they have. And then you have 13 or so, I think you said, of bills that are targeting and making life more complicated for law-abiding citizens. I think that speaks a lot for itself.
It should.
We're talking to Ian Escalante, Executive Director of RMGO. They're down there battling for your Second Amendment rights. Go to rmgo.org. Join them today. They've got a rally right around 10 a.m., I think.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Join them down there, 9 a.m. Great opportunity to connect with some wonderful patriots. Ian, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show. Give us an update on Senate Bill 3.
Will do.
We'll continue to follow that. It's amazing to me that Colorado is where we are now. In 2013, the idea of introducing these bills would have resulted in a recall. So much for the free state of Colorado.
I didn't have enough time to chat with some of the stuff with Ian on there. But going back to the previous hour, there's a texter, I believe it was Andrew, that made a good analogy. Talked about how in our previous hour we were discussing that a 10-year waiting period to get into the country is completely and totally reasonable on one end. But then 3 days to get a gun and taking classes, that's unreasonable.
Because one's a constitutional right and one's not.
But there are restrictions that are placed on that constitutional right. And there are laws that we have that exist on that constitutional right. So, yeah, there are restrictions. It's not universal.
When's enough?
When's enough for what?
When's enough restrictions on the Second Amendment right?
I don't know. But I think the idea of training isn't a bad thing. How's that a bad thing?
No one's saying that training's a bad thing.
Yeah, in that conversation, there was an idea that training was a bad thing.
Mandating it via law in order for you to exercise that?
But is training a bad thing?
Should we do it with the First Amendment?
But is training? No, hang on a sec. Exercising the First Amendment is different than exercising the Second in many ways. So they're not analogous per se.
I think they very, very much are.
Okay, if I shout at you accidentally, am I going to injure you? But if I misuse my firearm, I can accidentally kill you. They're not the same analogous. They're not. They don't have the same impact. They don't have the same impact at all.
Bill, you could organize a lot of people to harm other people via speech. So maybe we should go through training.
Can I? How do I harm them through speech? I mean, necessarily. I mean, I understand the idea of, isn't it sticks and stones and names don't hurt me? I mean, I understand the idea of insults and things like that and being, I get into that and I'm not always, I defer many times to the free speech because I disagree in many times some of the harms that are, but when you get large people together and they take action per se, like a riot, we can go to BLM or something. Yeah, but that's a group that then transference over from being an organized group into actual violence. That's different.
Right. So the violence is illegal,
have.
So is shooting somebody.
But the organization is
That's already illegal.
Not necessarily. I can drop the gun accidentally and it goes off. Doesn't mean
accidentally. You can say something wrong,
but
too.
Again,
in both cases, you can harm people. That's the point I'm saying. Both cases, you can harm people.
They're not
and
the
in
same.
both those cases, harming people is already illegal.
They're not
but
the
with
same.
the Second Amendment, it's critical for you to go through how much trading? You said you don't know. There's never enough.
No, what
There's
I asked
never
is,
enough. We already have a 3-day waiting period. We already have an FBI background check. You already got to go through 8 hours of training for your concealed carry. Now you got to pass a test in order to do that.
But hang
now
on.
we got to go through this.
Not everybody takes concealed carry.
Firearm safety eligibility. There's never enough for the gun grabbers.
Concealed.
Bill?
I'm not a gun grabber. And
I
concealed,
never said you were a gun grabber.
But hang on a sec. But you did roll me in there. You did roll me in there when you're saying never enough for you. The idea is that concealed carry is a voluntary program. Not everybody that goes through purchasing a gun goes through concealed carry. And that's part of my issue is why is training for a firearm a bad thing? Because both of you push back on it.
You're welcome to do it. You're absolutely welcome to do it.
But what we don't want to make sure is the person that is buying a firearm is trained how to use it. That's something we don't need to make sure happens.
Because the point isn't training, Bill. The point is restricting the Second Amendment rights of good citizens. That's the point.
But the issue that I've got is those individuals that are responsible gun owners are those that have been trained 9 times out of 10. And if the training gets them then why don't we mandate the training?
But the point of these lawmakers,
why don't we mandate
and
the training?
they will always do it, is continue to add and add and add and add and add.
Not
They've already
necessarily.
done it.
Not
Yes, there's
necessarily.
never enough. Tell me where the line is. Tell me where we're going to be happy and go, that's it.
Again,
We're
it depends on where the
training's
society is as far
good.
as hang on. It depends on the society as far as but it's the same slippery slope argument we have with gay marriage. If we allowed gay marriage, we were going to allow people to get married to goats. That hasn't happened. So the slippery slope argument, we can decide as a society where that line is all the time, but we got to get going to a break. We got a guest coming up.
Yeah, we got a guest coming up. All right, we're going to jump into another Supreme Court case coming from Colorado because that's what we do here. Pass unconstitutional laws that the United States of America shoots down. Supreme Court to decide, can Colorado silence counselors who don't push gender ideology? I know this bill well. I testified against it. We're going to talk with Alliance Defending Freedom coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Here we go again. Something we did in the state of Colorado, heading to the U.S. Supreme Court. Our friends over at Alliance Defending Freedom, Supreme Court to decide, can Colorado silence counselors who don't push gender ideology? ADF is representing Counselor Kaylee Childs, challenging Colorado law that forces counselors to promote gender transitions to minors. Now, I know this law well because I ran a lobbying team down there trying to stop this law. This is a wild one. It was under the guise, first of all, of kind of wanting to stop this effort to change someone's sexual orientation, okay? And the way they introduced it was they brought up these horror stories of people like getting beat and put in ice baths and electrocuted for being gay, right? And I even went over to the sponsor. I was working for the Centennials at the time. And I said, guys, you want to stop that? We'll join you, okay? But the way this is written, this is a violation of free speech that's going to force every counselor out there to counsel a child or somebody in a direction, in one particular direction. It's forced speech, okay? And to provide us some context on this is Matt Sharp. He's senior counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Matt, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll get to him in just a second. I think we're got a little technical difficulty here. Stand by. But they're working to Matt. We'll get you off here in just a second. We've got some hold music, I think, that's being played here. Are we ready to go, Bill? All right. Matt, we're back with you.
All right. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you as well, brother. Let's talk this.
Sure. Well, you teed it up so well. Several years ago, Colorado passed a law that censors what counselors and their clients can talk about in private conversations. So at Alliance Defending Freedom, we're representing Kaylee Childs. She's a licensed counselor in Colorado. For years, she's helped people in the state with trauma, with disorders, with mental health issues, and that includes helping people that are dealing with sexual attractions or gender confusion and that are wanting and seeking out help consistent with their Christian faith. So these are individuals coming to Kaylee because she is a Christian, and they're saying, I want to live consistent with my biological sex. I want to embrace my biological reality, and Kaylee wants to help them. But Colorado says, no, Kaylee, you cannot do that. You can't help children that are seeking to embrace their biological sex, that are seeking mental health services to deal with gender dysphoria. The very services that places in Europe, England, Finland, Sweden, are saying we ought to be giving to kids, Colorado is trying to censor them. So not only does this infringe Kaylee and her clients' free speech rights, it's censoring what they can talk about, but it's ultimately denying kids in Colorado the very help that can be transformational as they're dealing with questions about their gender identity.
I want to help. Oh, we got more. Tell us where this has been in the courts and tell us where.
that the government cannot regulate and censor that speech.
We're talking with Matt.
Talking with Matt.
To show people. They're required by law to counsel them only in a particular direction, and that particular direction is to embrace their trans ideology. They can't explore anything else. They have to embrace by law their trans ideology. So this is compelled speech. Explain how this is similar to what California crisis pregnancy centers faced with their compelled speech law.
Yeah, this is exactly right. This is Colorado pushing one viewpoint, that the only counseling and services that you can give to a kid are to push them down this one-way street that ultimately leads to the puberty blockers, the hormones, the sterilizing, dangerous surgeries. Years ago, California tried to do the same thing with pregnancy care centers. They tried to tell them that because they're licensed by the state, because they provide services and are regulated, Colorado can force them to promote abortion. Again, these are centers that exist to promote a pro-life worldview and to help provide women with options and access to better solutions other than abortion. And so there, the Supreme Court ruled against California, striking down their law, saying that you cannot force a pregnancy center to speak a message to provide information about where women can get abortion when it violates their beliefs. So just like California was trying to create a one-way street, saying you can only promote abortion, you can't promote alternatives, Colorado's trying to do the same thing, telling counselors like Kaylee, you can only push children further down the road of gender ideology, push them further towards sterilizing surgeries and cross-sex hormones that do irreparable damage. You can't counsel them in a way that actually helps them find comfort and peace with their biological sex. So it is a dangerous thing, not only for censoring speech, but ultimately for the kids that need the exact counseling services that Kaylee provides. Colorado is denying them and ultimately pushing them further down a dangerous path towards gender transition drugs and surgeries.
We're talking with Matt Sharp. He's ADF senior counsel on a new U.S. Supreme Court case heading up, Childs v. Salazar. It's another one working its way up. Now, if you remember, Alliance Defending Freedom has been the powerhouse organization that defended Jack Phillips. By the way, I saw Jack on Saturday, swung by Masterpiece, bought some cookies for the kids. We were nearby and got to see Jack. He's in great spirits. Jack Phillips, Lori Smith, 303 Creative, now Childs v. Salazar. I think that this one will be struck down by the court because of, as you just mentioned, the similar case coming out of California on compelled speech. Now, I want to give the other side their kind of their point. And what they're arguing is that, look, this is part of the requirements of having a counselor's license in Colorado, that we want to prevent abuse. We want to prevent harm to these kids. And the effort to change somebody's sexuality has resulted in some harm. So we feel like we're protecting kids by putting forward this law. What's your response to that, Matt Sharp?
Well, I think we can all agree that if anyone, counselor or otherwise, is engaging in harmful conduct towards a child, they can and should be regulated and punished by the state. But that's not what's happening here. What Kaylee does is interact with clients who come seeking her. These are clients that have their own goals, their own things that they're working towards. And some of these clients, these people seeking her out, want help overcoming gender identity issues. They're seeking out Kaylee specifically for those goals, and Kaylee is providing them with counseling. Not any conduct, not anything that would be harmful or dangerous conduct towards these individuals, but just talking with them and helping them achieve the client's own goals and objectives. So that's why this is very different than what the other side is saying. Again, if Colorado wants to ban harmful conduct, it absolutely can. But what it cannot do is censor conversations, to intrude in a private conversation between Kaylee and her clients, where Kaylee helps her clients achieve their own chosen goals. She doesn't impose her views on the client, but rather helps them accomplish what they're working towards. And if a client seeks her out seeking help with gender confusion, seeking help to embrace their biological sex, Colorado has no business telling Kaylee and her clients that they can't work on that goal together.
Matt Sharp, ADF Senior Counsel. I think the key word there is chosen goals because, look, if you're a parent right now in the state of Colorado and you have a child that is confused about their gender ideology. We saw this with Erin Lee, a parent up in northern Colorado. She did a whole movie about this. If you have a child that is intrigued by it or confused by it or whatever it might be, right, about their gender, in the state of Colorado, if you take that child to a counselor, the counselor can only, by law, encourage them to transition. That's it.
That's right.
They have no other option. They cannot go, well, little Johnny, let's talk about this. Do you really feel like you're a girl in a boy's body? They can't even ask that question. All they can do by law in Colorado is go, all right, Johnny, welcome to my counseling session. Let's start talking about transitioning to being a girl. Here's the puberty blockers you could take. Here's how you can dress. This is essentially mandated worldview promotion. And going to your point, Matt, of chosen goals, right? If the parents want to go, let's even just explore this. Let's just even talk about this. Maybe they aren't necessarily going, Johnny, you're clearly a boy. Stop it. If they just want to explore other options, they're not allowed in the state of Colorado. And this is the case. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's exactly right. There's growing evidence that 95% of kids, if you just take the watchful waiting approach, just letting a child work through some of the issues, because so much we find that kids with gender dysphoria, it's rooted in something else. It's rooted in depression, anxiety. That's what Kaylee's wanting to help them with. And so rather than pushing them down this one-way street towards the puberty blockers and hormones, to just sit with the child and say, let's explore what's really going on here. Is it really that you feel you're born in the wrong body, or is there something underlying that could maybe be the root cause of all of this? That's what Kaylee wants to offer to these families seeking her out, seeking help. So again, if we're looking at stats showing that 95% of kids, if you just let them go through natural puberty, if you don't push them towards a gender ideology, if you don't push them towards the drugs and surgeries, they'll naturally outgrow that. That's a winning solution. That's what Kaylee wants to offer, and that is what Colorado is blocking families in Colorado, children in Colorado, from being able to seek out. It is denying them the choice of seeking the help that Kaylee provides, denying them the ability to seek help that could actually help them find comfort in their biological sex, consistent with the science that we see coming out of Europe and other places. That's what Colorado is censoring, and that's ultimately not only bad for the free speech of Kaylee and others like her in the counseling profession, it's bad for children and families in Colorado that could greatly benefit from what Kaylee offers.
We're talking with Matt Sharp, ADF Senior Counsel. Now, Matt, this is really geared towards children in counseling, right? Because if you're an adult, you can just kind of pick a different counselor, right? So if I remember correctly, this was really geared towards minors, gay conversion therapy, that type of thing. And like I said, when it was introduced down at the bill, at the Capitol, they brought in all of these horrific stories. And I said to the people, guys, Colorado Christian University would stand with you against like electroshock therapy to stop you from being gay, or making you watch gay porn and putting you in an ice bath. My goodness, we're happy to stop that. But what you're doing is a direct violation of free speech, and it's a worldview promotion that I think is going to be found unconstitutional. Well, Matt, I'll give you the last word. We've got to wrap up here.
Yeah, well, we've seen other courts in the 11th Circuit and the 3rd Circuit reject arguments like Colorado's and find that what these counselors are doing is constitutionally protected. So that's why we're encouraged that the Supreme Court took up this case, that they're not only going to overturn Colorado's law to make sure that Kaylee and other counselors in the state are protected, but ultimately issue an opinion, we're hopeful, that will ensure that no matter where a person lives, Colorado, California, or anywhere else, that they have the freedom to counsel freely, and that these clients and families have the ability to get the counseling that can be so beneficial to them. So we're encouraged by the Supreme Court taking this case and look forward to a great victory for free speech for every American.
No one's doing it better than Alliance Defending Freedom. Visit adflegal.org. Be sure to donate and support the work they're doing. They are now on their 3rd there's probably more out there, but at least their third major U.S. Supreme Court case coming from Colorado. Thank God what they're doing, because they're achieving and protecting our rights against a radical, progressive, leftist legislature that continues to create problems for our state. Matt Sharp, ADF Senior Counsel, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks for having me.
We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking a new U.S. Supreme Court case heading from Colorado. We knew this one was all along when they first passed this law, like back in 1819. We were down there fighting at the state capitol because it's a violation of free speech. But basically, if you go to a counselor in the state of Colorado on transgenderism, you are required by law to counsel the child to embrace transgenderism. There's no exploration. There's no talking about it. There's no even letting them sit and think through it. It is welcome to the counseling session. Let's start exploring cross-sex hormones, changing your dress, all that stuff. We'll continue this conversation. Want to get into it, Bill? I just don't think we got time to get to Steve. Steve, right now, stick around. We'll get to you in the top of the next hour. We'll take you first. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're talking the new Supreme Court case heading on up. Childs v. Salazar, another one coming from Colorado. This is challenging Colorado laws that forces counselors to promote gender transitions to minors. Let's go to the phone line. Stephen's been very patient. Stephen, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Your thoughts?
It's shocking that it's absolutely outrageously shocking that, my 7-year-old grandson for the last 4 years, he developed a whole language around being a dinosaur. If he roared like T-Rex, that meant yes. And now he wants to be a dog. And, you just go along with it, and it's fun. But, this is outrageous to get counseling where all they're going to do is affirm the issue for the little kid, for the 12-year-old.
Yeah, and Steve,
I had no idea.
Let me give you the background on this. The way it was promoted and the way it was passed was a ban on conversion therapy. Okay, so conversion therapy is when, from the left's perspective, you try to change somebody's sexuality against kind of an innate sexual desire. Okay, so what they brought in were all these horror stories of people being like forced to watch gay porn and electrocuted while watching gay porn, or put in ice baths to try to stop their homosexuality. And to the point I made to the sponsors was, look, guys, that's abuse. And I'm willing to stand with you on that, okay? But there are so many consequences. There's so many consequences to this bill that you're eventually going to get into essentially a worldview promotion through the counseling services, and it's going to restrict free speech, and that's what the courts are going to look at. Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I'm curious where Billy stands on this.
Bill was dealing with the technical difficulties we had, but Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing for me is, okay, I'm trying to figure out how we can unspool this properly. The idea is I keep hearing concerns about the idea of grooming and getting people ready for, some sort of a sexual encounter. But what I don't hear, inside of this counseling is a focus on how the child's feeling. Like if the child feels they are of their biological sex, then why are they receiving counseling to reinforce the fact that they're feeling they are that biological sex? That's the part that I can't square the circle on this one, is I'm unfamiliar with parents that are taking their kids who are expressing themselves, they were born biologically as boys or born biologically as girls, and they're taking them to counselors to reinforce the fact they're boys and girls. I'm assuming the counseling is dealing with something else. They're there for counseling for something other than sexual orientation, unless we are saying that my son or daughter is expressing desires or questions about them being a different gender. And rather than exploring that in counseling, we are going to reaffirm and tell them that, no, you're wrong. You're this gender per se, which to me, it's an inelegant analogy, but to me that almost crests over into the idea of when we complain about grooming. Is we have the example, and again, this is not a fair analogy, I admit that, and there are probably better ones if I can get to them, but I don't have one right now. The idea of Erin Lee and her daughter getting into an art class, and they convinced the daughter that she was now transgender, so something that she wasn't feeling to begin with. So the issue that I've got is, at the core, this seems like it's directed to the free speech argument. To me, it seems like a front. It seems like the idea of I, as a parent, don't agree that my child is expressing the possibility they could be another gender, so I'm going to put them in counseling that's going to reaffirm what I believe, not necessarily what my child believes. I'm not saying that the counselors doing this are 100% correct, but I question the free speech argument. I question the validity of where that sits at the core of this conversation, because I'm assuming that the counselor they were talking about, if a person comes in and says, I was born biologically a boy and I think that I'm a boy, I doubt they're getting confirmation counseling for that. That's the part that I didn't. But again, I didn't have a chance to chat with him. I was doing some other stuff behind the scenes, so I don't have all the information.
Well, I mean, I pretty much thought that's where you would come out on this.
Yeah.
I think it's just horrific that that you can take a child without their parents' knowledge and start them on puberty blockers and start down that path.
Oh, I don't think that's okay, but I don't think that's covered necessarily by this law, from what I was hearing, because you can't necessarily counsel kids under the age of 18 without their parents' consent.
Oh, yes, you can. 100%. 100%. I fought that bill down at the state capitol that was pushed by Daphne Michelson-Janae under the guise that we have kids coming in that are suicidal. We can't wait for the parents' permission to counsel them. And we went down there and said, can you at least, why don't we give them 1 or 2 counseling sessions without parental notification? It was passed into law and signed with no requirements whatsoever to notify parents that they're getting counseling.
Okay, and I disagree with that per se, but how does that affect this case? Because that's not necessarily what this case is dealing with.
Right, no, it's a separate law.
Yeah.
But in the state of Colorado, you can
dealing with
absolutely counsel a minor without parental notification.
Okay, and I disagree with that, but that doesn't necessarily address this law. And so I still
they
am looking
work together.
but I'm still looking for the idea of the prevention of counseling someone that believes they are of the gender they are biologically, and somehow that's prevented. That if they're in counseling, they're told, because that was the impression I got from the conversation, was if I bring my child into counseling,
yes,
and my child says that I was born a girl and I believe I'm a biological girl, the counselor is forced to tell them, nope, I'm sorry, you're wrong, you're a guy. That was the impression.
No. You have to affirm whatever direction they may be going, but you can't even explore it. You can't even ask them to question it. So if they come in and say, "I'm thinking I might be I was born a biological boy. I think I might be a girl." Okay, Johnny, we're now going to start exploring puberty blockers. You can't even ask the question. Well, tell me what you think that means. You have to affirm it. And drive it in a particular direction. Go ahead, Steve.
Billy can just take that giant towing cable and shove it right through a tiny sewing needle. It's staggering. I'm starting to understand you, Billy, and I think that I could guess your position on just about any topic that comes up, and it's so. But I mean, do you do this just so that you can have a controversial show, or do you really believe a lot of this stuff you say?
Why do you think that I wouldn't? Why do you think that I would just open up the microphone and create an entire BS persona? Is that really what you think is happening?
It makes more interesting radio than if you just always agree.
Well, yeah, but could it possibly be, though? I mean, Stephen, couldn't it possibly be that Jeff and I disagree on these sorts of topics, and that's why they put us together, was because of the disagreement, not that I have to pretend about it?
I'm intrigued. Hey, I got this question for you, Billy. Yeah. It's off the topic, but back in December, you said that Donald Trump has fascist tendencies, and
authoritarianism.
Has he exhibited any of these fascist tendencies so far?
Yeah, and authoritarianism. Yeah, I've got a list that I've been working on. Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, here's the thing. Stephen, does Donald Trump, and we'll explore this, we got to get to news here in a second, but did Donald Trump, through executive order, try to change the Constitution? The answer is yes.
I hope so.
The answer, I know, but the
I
answer is
hope
yes.
so.
That would be authoritarian and fascist. Has Donald Trump tried to take away and invalidate or just basically dissolve agencies outside of Congress? And Congress created those agencies. Did he also do the same thing with funding? That he decided because he's in charge, he can suspend funding indefinitely, cut funding, or in fact dissolve these agencies? Did he decide that? Has he made those moves through executive orders?
And I love it, Billy. I
The answer is yes,
love
right?
it, man.
Yeah, I know. You can love it,
Oh,
but
the
you can
answer is-
agree. The answer is yes.
fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that is authoritarianism bordering on fascism.
Kamala Harris would have won. I'm in my mid-70s, and however Kamala Harris would have ruined the nation even more, it's not going to affect me. And it would be interesting to.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing positives and negatives based on Kamala. You were talking to me and asking me about steps Donald Trump has taken that blend towards authoritarianism. And if we talk about blending even further into fascism, it would be bringing in someone like Elon Musk as far as Doge, because now you get into the blending of corporations and government working as one. And the corporation deciding, as far as the government, what is going to be positive, what's going to be negative, and how things are going to be spent. Yeah, this would absolutely qualify in some ways. Yeah, absolutely. I've been keeping a list. I think we talked about it back in February or in December, and I've been keeping a list. As things go forward, I've been ticking things off the list. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. You're you really believe in yourself, but I think you're just out in left field. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, Steve.
Appreciate
Steve's
it.
line will
But
be
again,
open.
he agreed with me that
303-696-1971.
Try to change the Constitution through executive order, and he said it was a good thing. So, okay.
Yeah, Biden did too.
I don't think the same way. Not in the same
Really?
way.
On his way out, he tried to add an amendment to the Constitution.
What? What one? What one? I don't know what you're talking about.
Equal Protection Amendment. The ERA. Equal Rights Amendment. Where women, it would provide. Remember, on his way out, like literally the day he was leaving, he just declared a new amendment.
To the
Constitution.
I'm not saying yes or no. I don't know what one you're talking about. I just don't have that in front of me. I don't know what you're referencing.
Well, Biden
I'm sorry.
did that.
I just
on
don't.
the
Yeah,
way
but
out.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right, lots of text messages,
have that.
but let's get into news now with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff and Billy. 36 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
We have a crazy day ahead of us at the Colorado State Capitol. Senate Bill 3, the monstrosity that first started out as a assault weapons ban 3.0, and then kind of morphed into this weird firearm owner ID card / permit to purchase, has now morphed once again. So it seems like every time this thing comes up for a vote, it ends up morphing.
Ian Escalante, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Executive Director, on with Jeff and Billy last hour. It just never ends in Colorado.
Now what they're trying to do is turn this whole permitting scheme over to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, because Colorado Parks and Wildlife is an enterprise. So they're trying to completely circumvent Tabor, stick a continuing appropriation in this bill, and then allow the unelected CPW to not just issue these permits, but also deny and revoke these permits if they think that you are a danger to your, quote unquote, danger to yourself or others. In addition, they're not capping the fees, nor are they saying that these permits have to be issued in a certain period of time.
Escalante and other patriots making their voices heard outside the Capitol this morning at 9 o'clock. DJT will meet with top business leaders from around the country today. The Business Roundtable comes as Wall Street has had a rough few weeks amidst uncertainty over Trump's economic policy. Economist Kathy Wood has a lot of confidence in 47 and Elon.
Elon is relentless, and he's got a boss who's also relentless. So I do think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to drive huge increases in productivity as well. So Reagan Revolution, I think this revolution will dwarf the Reagan Revolution.
U.S. and Ukrainian officials are holding talks today in Saudi Arabia in an attempt to get a ceasefire in the war with Russia. President Zelensky isn't there because he's busy launching 330 drones into Russia. It's the largest attack on Russia. What are you doing? Listening to your globalist handlers, obviously. And did you have anything to do with this?
There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced.
Yes.
It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine.
I don't know, just a guess, just a little question. President Trump says he's going to buy a brand new Tesla this morning as a show of support for Elon. In a post on Truth Social last night, Trump said Musk is putting it all on the line in order to help our nation. Trump said radical left lunatics are illegally boycotting Tesla. Tesla saw its worst day on the stock market since 2020 on Monday. Elon is receiving death threats almost every day. The continuing resolution is full of garbage, but it's the best option to getting the dirty work done in 6 months. Hold your nose for a half a year so real cuts can begin. It'll actually stop and cut spending for 6 months.
That's correct. It's because everything is offset. Like, for instance, we're going to add more money to home, and where's that money coming from? There's a slush fund in the Commerce Department. We're taking that. We're taking money from the IRS expansion. So anything that is increased in it is offset, and it's offset more than it's increased. So it's actually a reduction in.
Pennsylvania's Scott Perry on this morning on Stegall. InfoWars top writer and reporter Jamie White was murdered in Southeast Austin Sunday night. Alex Jones.
Well, he was up here last night working late during the Sunday show and after it. And we even have his last post on X where he responded to Elon Musk. Jamie was murdered last night outside of his home, just a few miles away from our studios.
Absolutely horrific. The FAA is investigating a deadly crash involving a medical helicopter in rural Mississippi. The Madison County Sheriff's Office says the chopper went down in a densely wooded area. It was carrying 2 University of Mississippi Medical College employees and a pilot. There were no survivors. Avalanche shut out the Blackhawks, and a reminder the DU taking on CC in the best of 3 at Magnus Arena coming up this weekend. Mark Crowley excited about that, and he should be. Nuggets beat the Thunder 140-127. A great defensive effort by both teams. 32 in Castle Pines, 33 in Broomfield, 36 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Very nice spring-like weather for Denver and the Front Range as we go through today and tomorrow and into the beginnings of Thursday. Temperatures will be quite comfortable. 60s for highs, lows at night, mid to upper 30s. A mix of high clouds and sunshine. Enjoy. Thursday night into Friday and Saturday, though, it will trend quite a bit colder. A Pacific storm will race through Colorado quickly, bringing snow to the mountains and rain and snow showers to the Front Range Thursday night through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking guns. We're talking trans counseling. My goodness, it's a spicy morning this morning. We've got nearly jam-packed phone lines. Join the conversation at 303-696-1971. Let's go to Thomas in Denver. Good morning, Thomas. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Do we have you, Thomas? Thomas might have stepped away. All right, let's go to Joe. Maybe we can get Thomas back. Joe Arvada, good morning. Joe, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, Jeff, Billy. I just want to straighten some things out here. No, Donald Trump hasn't done anything against the Constitution. I'm sorry. Now, there was some rulings by some leftist judges that have tried to slow roll the president's executive orders, but you have to understand something. The Constitution was made so the executive could have a say for the people. Oh, yes, we're a representative republic. We're a republic. We elected Donald Trump to do exactly what he's doing right now. And when it comes to Doge, let's be clear about something. Every president has advisors. Abraham Lincoln had probably more than any of them. But here's the point. The final say is by our elected executive. What do you not understand, Billy?
I understand that he can't change the Constitution based on executive order.
What executive order changes the Constitution?
The one about birthright citizenship.
See, that has yet to be decided in court. See, the Supreme Court is the final say in all of this war in the leftist court judges versus constitutional originalists. That is the final say with the judicial branch. But the judicial branch doesn't overrule the executive authority. It doesn't. See,
yeah, it does.
That's where you are way out of line. No. The executive is 1/3 of our government. Now, I understand that they are supposed to rule where the laws are in conflict with the executive authority and with executive powers. But just like Joe Biden did, don't you remember Joe Biden saying, oh, no, we're going to go ahead and refund all of those people's tuition no matter what the court says. He didn't say, oh, I'm going to listen to the court. No, he said, no, I'm 1/3 of the executive authority.
That's incorrect. That's an incorrect characterization, Joe, in my opinion.
No, it isn't.
He took several different bites at the apple. When he was ruled against on the first executive order, he came back and tried to do it a different way, and then lost again, and they came back and tried to do it a third way. But the issue being the idea of, you talked about the originalism and the intent of the Constitution. So you're saying that our founding fathers intended for the president to be able, through executive order, to change the Constitution. That's how you think it was originally set up, yes or no? Is that how you think it was set up?
Okay, yes, and I will give an example.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln suspended, what was it? Habeas corpus. Now, let me ask you a question. Was that according to the judicial branch?
Hang on a sec. That's not an executive order where he's changing an amendment to the Constitution. So you're saying that the executive has the power to issue an executive order that changes the Constitution, especially the amendments, correct?
That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that.
Hang on, wait, Joe, hang on a sec, Joe.
Let me say it again.
No, Joe, that was my premise. Joe, my premise was you asked me about it, and I said there's Donald Trump on the idea of birthright citizenship. He's trying to use an executive order to change the Constitution. Okay, then what's he trying to do with it?
That's not what he's doing.
Okay, then what's he trying to do with it?
He is issuing a conflicting order for leftist judges, not for the Supreme Court. They have not ruled on this issue yet. They have not ruled. Now, if they rule that birthright citizen, somebody can walk across the border, boom, have a baby, now that's a citizen of the United States. If they rule that, then it's in conflict with the judicial branch. That does not mean it's in conflict with the United States Constitution. That means it's in conflict with the judicial understanding of the Constitution, not necessarily in conflict with the Constitution. Let's not forget that the Constitution had a lot of things that we don't agree with today. For instance, slaves having, 3/5? I don't know if that was an amendment later, but here's the point.
Yeah, that's right.
Things do change, but that's legislative change, and then the executive can come into conflict with the judicial branch. It's not always has to be an agreement. Habeas corpus suspension was an example where Abraham Lincoln said, I do not agree with the judicial branch because we need to save our nation, and I am the elected authority of these United States, and I take control by my executive power.
So the executive is a
That
king.
is what we elected
So the
him
executive
for.
is a king, correct? In your model there,
No,
the executive is a
that
king.
is not what the executive power
Joe,
is for.
You said that the executive can basically ignore the judiciary. The judiciary has an opinion, but the executive isn't necessarily bound by that. So the executive can override both the judiciary, but also by logic, then the Constitution. So a Democrat that is in there can then hang on, but the Democrat that's in there can then just say the Second Amendment no longer exists through an executive order.
No,
if Donald Trump can
take
back
is get
birthright
another
citizenship,
president elected.
I know.
That's how you can counter the executive authority. Get a different president elected.
I know, Joe, but at the core, what you're saying is that the Constitution doesn't necessarily exist. It's all based on the person we put in the executive.
I'm not saying
and that's
that
the
at
king.
all.
Oh, yes, you did. You
I'm
just said
saying
that.
that we have
you just said get another person executive. You said another person needs to get elected and then make a different choice.
Each part of our government is 1/3 of the government. And yes, they exist to counterbalance. And now let me just say this. Donald Trump has adhered to every judicial decision. Don't lie. He hasn't countermanded any judicial decision. When? Go ahead, tell me.
I don't know where you're pulling that from. I didn't say that. What I'm saying is the
He
idea
has
that
never gone against a court decision.
Hang on. He has come out and he has taken executive order, executive action that remands the birthright citizenship. And that is not okay based on the Constitution.
Part of the Constitution.
It's part of the amendments.
Yeah, it's part of the 14th Amendment.
It's part of the
Joe,
amendments.
When I read it, the way I read it, though, is not the way that you guys read it. See, you have to understand something. Law is predicated by, yes, English law.
Well, hang on though, but Joe, law is not predicated based on the way that Joe from Arvada understands it. Thanks for the phone call. But you don't get to make the decision on what the law says. And yes, it is the courts. And yes, I agree with the courts sometimes, and I disagree with the courts sometimes. But what I do agree with is that the president does not have the power to rescind or put in a brand new amendment into the Constitution just based on executive order. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. I don't know but what about the ERA? I don't understand. I can't find anything on the ERA.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Type in Biden ERA amendment. On January 17th, he declared that the Equal Rights Amendment, which mandates in the Constitution
I'm trying to read it right now.
that men and women are equal. Remember, this is Phyllis Schlafly. This was all through the 70s and stuff. Was a part of the Constitution. He just declared it. It's not part of the Constitution. And then the actual people in the archives that manage the Constitution said, no, it's not. So on either side, okay, Joe's wrong about the idea that the executive can just move on with whatever it wants to do in spite of what the Supreme Court says. Okay, that's not right. It has to abide by what the Supreme Court says. But at the same time, what I think Trump's doing, can you say it's trying to change the 14th Amendment? Possibly, but from my perspective, what he's doing as the chief of the executive branch is look at the 14th Amendment, which was never written, from my perspective, and I think a historical perspective, that all of a sudden, any child born here during 10 million illegal immigrants coming across the border is given birthright citizenship. He is saying, I'm going to interpret and execute the 14th Amendment differently than maybe previous administrations have done. Now, what that does is set up a court battle, which it has. The president and the executive branch have been sued to basically clarify what the 14th Amendment means, because when it was passed with regard to birthright citizenship, it was about the the children of slaves and whether or not they're citizens of the United States. So, is the president trying to change the Constitution? You can make that argument, but I also think the more honest argument is that he's telling the Supreme Court how he plans to execute, as the chief executive, the birthright citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment. It has now been challenged. It'll be weighed in by the U.S. Supreme Court, and the president will have to abide by whatever that ruling is.
But one of the landmark rulings on that idea of birthright citizenship had to do with the Chinese.
Yes, it did.
So the idea of slaves is moot at that point, because that person who came here in the court case wasn't a slave. So the idea that it only applied to slaves,
and
the court has already decided that. And I'm going through the Biden ERA amendment, and what he's using is he's saying, since Virginia was the 38th state to ratify it, he's siding with the American Bar Association, saying that because we have 38 states, that it now has crested above the requirements.
Right.
That's it. That's all he's saying. That because of that,
But that's not what he's saying. He actually said we have a new amendment to the Constitution.
What he said is he said that because Virginia is the 38th state and the American Bar Association said it's passed it, I agree with them, so I believe this is what happens. Yes, but he's not adding it necessarily. He didn't create a brand new amendment, nor is he taking one away. This is one, and we can talk about whether or not it's been voted on and the 38, and is that the number of states you need, etc. But that's the argument that he's making, is that since we have 38 states, he's siding with the American Bar Association.
3 days before he left, he declared we have a 28th Amendment to the Constitution.
Based on Virginia voting for it and the American Bar Association opinion.
It was his interpretation. It was his administration's interpretation 3 days before he left that we all of a sudden had a new amendment. But you seem to be claiming that Donald Trump is this authoritarian because he wants to challenge parts of the Constitution. And I'm pointing out that 3 days before he left, Joe Biden added another amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, I don't see them being the same thing necessarily. I understand why it works for the argument, but I don't see them as necessarily being the same thing, because one person is saying, because we have crested over this barrier, because we've done that, then the Biden administration says they assume that is part of the Constitution, but nobody's reprinting constitutions. No one is running out there saying it. Yeah, but no one did that. However, but the other side is, on the other side with Donald Trump, we are taking it from Joe from Arvada. The idea that, yes, Donald Trump is able to do this. No, I don't think so. And I don't think that Joe Biden saying, oh, we already said we now have the Equal Rights Amendment. I don't agree that by that executive order that it creates the Equal Rights Amendment. No. But does he set up the idea that, yes, this can be looked at? Sure. And Donald Trump is setting it up to be looked at, but he is saying that he's rescinding it. It's not the idea of X, Y, and Z. Donald Trump is just like, I'm taking away this constitutional right.
No, the actual executive order is reading the 14th Amendment. He's not striking out words on it.
He's making your arguments.
He's looking at the particular. There's a comma and then another comma. So there's a clause in there that says under the jurisdiction thereof. And that becomes the reason, the legal reasoning for his challenge. But
commas. Let's not talk about commas in the Second Amendment, for God's sakes. Don't do that. That would be silly.
Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show, where we debate commas. Phone lines are open. You're welcome to join the conversation on this, on the Second Amendment conversation, and on the U.S. Supreme Court case coming from Colorado all the way up to the High Court on the issue of counseling and compelled speech. 303-696-1971. We'd love to hear your voice. 303-696-1971. Or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Those text messages come right into the studio. And boy, oh boy, are they spicy today. We'll get to all this and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. advocating for violence. Okay, we probably can get there. But leading the protests, and even the idea of him being, he was the spokesperson for their big student sit-in thing, which if I was in charge of the college, I probably would have tried to move it along rather than just sitting there for a variety of reasons. But it's, I don't know what the legalities of them doing that or being able to congregate there. And if there were legal issues, the college should have moved him along. But to me, the way this is being sold is that we didn't like him protesting. Not that he was necessarily, we didn't like what he said. So again, we're back to the free speech issue. And from a group of individuals that for years have whined and moaned and complained about their free speech issues.
I see it more complicated than free speech because you've had the direct harassment of Jewish students to the point where many of them don't even go to school anymore at Columbia University. Direct anti-Semitism, to your point, Bill, about property damage, property takeover, all that stuff. Plus, aligning with some of these groups, like Marco Rubio points out, Hamas. How closely is he aligned to them? We'll have to see what the government's case is on this. I don't think it's just pure speech. I think it gets more complicated. Direct harassment of Jews on these college campuses, and a Jewish student has every right to feel safe on these college campuses, to be able to go to their classes and not be directly harassed by these protesters. We saw them down at the Aurora campus. They're intimidating. This is not I'm having a little free speech rally. This is not me wearing a sweatshirt down to the Colorado State Capitol. I think they're directly intimidating Jewish students. That's not right in America. You're doing that, especially if you're not from this country. Get them out of here. But we'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
New updates coming to the Southwest check bag policy. Starting May 28th, Southwest Airlines will charge customers to check bags. It just always goes downhill. You remember Frontier used to give you warm cookies when you flew with them? Now unless you're A-list preferred or business select, you'll get 2 bags free with them. Everybody else, you'll start paying for bags now on Southwest Airlines starting May 28th. All right, are you... Well, that may be a bad deal for everybody. I got a good deal for you guys. Here's where it gets better. Are you ready to transform your kitchen or bathroom into a stunning masterpiece? Look no further than the Art of Granite, your premier destination for exquisite granite, marble, and quartz countertops. For over 15 years, Mitch Flory, and I love this guy, a great patriot, owner of the Art of Granite, has been crafting and installing custom countertops, fireplaces, showers, and more. Their team of experts will guide you through the selection process, ensuring you find the perfect stone to match your style and budget. Visit their showroom in Golden or browse their online inventory at theartofgranite.com. Discover the endless possibilities for your home renovation. All you have to do is mention KNUS, and you'll get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops. Or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Mention KNUS for those exclusive savings and transform your kitchen or bathroom dreams into reality with theartofgranite.com. All right, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, Jimmy Sengenberger is going to join us, my favorite columnist in the Gazette. You can't miss his pieces every week. There's 2 ones that are just fire. One on how a CU regent who happens to own a marijuana company is using her power, possibly, to kill some research on the negative effects of pot coming from CU. And then we're also going to get an update on this Denver Public Schools court case with ICE and what really happened there. His latest coming out today, how a federal ruling exposes DPS's true motives with regards to illegal immigration. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. It's going to be spicy. So Jimmy Sengenberger coming up. Bill, now even Southwest. No free bags.
No, not at all. That's
and I think they're moving to actually assigned seats now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's just air travel's changing. Then that's just what we're gonna have to get used to. We're not going back.
The Frontier cattle car.
Yeah, no, that's what's gonna happen. That's what's going to happen, and they're gonna be doing it with fewer and fewer air traffic controllers, fewer and fewer flights, fewer and fewer pilots, fewer everything. Yes, fewer everything. That's where we're headed.
Oh, happy Tuesday to y'all. At least we got good deals with the Art of Granite. That'll make you feel better. I mean, they set you up. All you got to use is KNUS. All right. We'll get to Jimmy Sengenberger next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We've got a ton of text messages coming in today. Phone lines are open as well. You're welcome to join the conversation. 303-696-1971. Jimmy Sengenberger is going to come up here in a second. He's a columnist with the Gazette. He's a must-read every week, doing a fantastic job. I want to talk about two recent articles. One on a CU regent utilizing her position, allegedly, to try to influence research that may be coming from the university that pot is really bad, especially for developing minds. Is she putting her own profit ahead of what's right for the state of Colorado? And then his most recent one out today, a federal ruling exposing Denver Public Schools' true motives regarding illegal immigration. We're going to get into all of that. But now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Thanks, Jeff and Billy. 41 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, President Trump says new tariffs on some Canadian goods will go into effect tomorrow. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that the tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. from Canada will be increased to 50%. Trump said this is in response to the Premier of Ontario announcing a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. The Premier warned he would shut the power off completely if the U.S. chose to escalate. Trump said he will declare a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area, which he says will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done. U.S. and Ukrainian officials are in Saudi Arabia today working on getting a ceasefire in the war with Russia. Ukrainian President Zelensky not attending yet because he's busy evidently with drones. Kiev launched its largest drone attack on Russia to date last night, sending more than 330 drones into the country. That's a way to stop the war. InfoWars top reporter Jamie White was a victim of a horrific crime in Southeast Austin Sunday night. Alex Jones.
He was up here last night working late during the Sunday show and after it. And we even have his last post on X where he responded to Elon Musk. Jamie was murdered last night outside of his home, just a few miles away from our studio.
Horrible. Unbelievable. And Chris Cuomo on with Tucker last night. Tucker knows who's probably intimidating new FBI Director Kash Patel.
If you watch this, in my case, for the same as you, 35 years, watching the stuff carefully, and somebody, gets in office, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and then like 5 days later, they're like, well, actually, someone has called that person to say, there's something you didn't know. Here are the consequences of doing that. Someone has applied very serious pressure on this person. Pressure so serious that that person is willing to humiliate himself. What I brought to it was the knowledge that a member of the Senate Intel Committee, I'm not guessing, called over and said, you cannot appoint this person.
So why don't you expose that person, first of all, so we can start chasing
Tom
after him?
Cotton of Arkansas did that.
Tom Cotton?
Yes, correct.
And did you ask him?
I haven't. No, I haven't asked him.
What the hell's going on with you?
I'd like to.
Things are stacking up on cotton. On Wall Street, the Dow fell about 200 points after the opening bell rang this morning. Stocks remain under pressure after markets lost a combined $4 trillion Monday. DJT will meet with CEOs at the Business Roundtable today. Some of the business leaders will include Cisco Systems' Chuck Robbins, JP Morgan Chase's Jamie Dimon, and Citigroup's Jane Fraser. The House is expected to vote today on a stopgap government funding bill As a possible shutdown looms on Friday, the proposed legislation from Speaker Mike Johnson would fund the federal government through the end of September. House Republicans are working to get support from their party members so it can be sent to the Senate, where it'll need some Democrat backing for it to pass.
We have a crazy day ahead of us at the Colorado State Capitol. Senate Bill 3, the monstrosity that first started out as a assault weapons ban 3.0, and then kind of morphed into this weird firearm owner ID card / permit to purchase, has now morphed once again. So,
Ian Escalante, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Executive Director, on with Jeff and Billy this morning. It just never ends in Colorado.
It seems like every time this thing comes up for a vote, it ends up morphing. Now what they're trying to do is turn this whole permitting scheme over to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, because Colorado Parks and Wildlife is an enterprise, so they're trying to completely circumvent Tabor, stick a continuing appropriation in this bill, and then allow the unelected CPW to not just issue these permits, but also deny and revoke these permits if they think that you are a danger to your, quote-unquote, danger to yourself or others.
And Escalante and other patriots making their voices heard right now outside the Capitol. All right, time to enter the dumb zone. Come in with me, if you will. Whoopi on trans athletes. She thinks they're no danger to girls, men in girls' sports.
When you come in and you say, oh, these men, these are men, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue.
They're not female athletes.
She lives in another universe. I'm sorry.
She does.
It's like, she's like, have you ever seen a female athlete? Yeah, they're strong and tough. Have you ever seen a male athlete?
Right. Exactly. They're incredible.
Bigger,
they're incredible female
and
athletes.
Stronger. I mean,
yes.
It's weird.
Do you want them to die? Is she actually watching this? Here, let me continue this real quick.
The same for me as when people say, oh, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes. No. And
what? Okay, yeah, you're right. God doesn't make mistakes.
Don't does what?
No, she said doesn't. But here's what I would have said to her. Exactly. So don't change your sex. Don't rip your private
Right, I was going to
parts
say,
off.
the whole progressive movement is the idea that God made mistakes.
Yes,
because they believe they're God.
They do. They do. And then what's her name? Mulvaney. I don't know. She was on the show. Dylan Mulvaney was on. That's who she was talking to. She was on the show, and I'm like, man, this guy, trans whatever. He's had so much work done to him, and I still can tell it's a man. I mean, just you could see just everything is just so fake and in another world. Golly, you're right though. Avalanche shut out the Blackhawks 3-0. Nuggets beat the Thunder 140-127. 39 in Parker. It is 37 in Boulder. 41 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. Now, let me ask you a question. Was that according to the judicial branch?
Huh? Yeah, that's what I cut it off right there. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Very nice spring-like weather for Denver and the Front Range as we go through today and tomorrow and into the beginnings of Thursday. Temperatures will be quite comfortable. 60s for highs, lows at night, mid to upper 30s. A mix of high clouds and sunshine. Enjoy. Thursday night into Friday and Saturday, though, it will trend quite a bit colder. A Pacific storm will race through Colorado quickly, bringing snow to the mountains and rain and snow showers to the Front Range Thursday night through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, I got two articles I want to discuss with him. He's my favorite writer in the Denver Gazette, a must-read every week. Jimmy Sengenberger joining us. All right, Jimmy, let's talk first. CU Regent and pot purveyor Wanda James under scrutiny. This was an interesting one. She might be using her position as a CU Regent to kill funding towards research that may be showing problems with marijuana. What are you finding, Jimmy Sengenberger?
Oh, this is a fascinating story that really traces back several years as I've been covering since she ran for Denver's CU Regent position in CPB One back in 2022. For a little bit of context, Wanda James is known as a black trailblazer in the pot industry. She was the first person to open a medical marijuana dispensary that was owned by a black person, as I understand it, back in 2009. And in 2015, did the same with a recreational pot shop called Simply Pure. And this is a big part of her brand, that this racial piece is part and parcel to her reputation as a pot industry pioneer. She also happened to run Jared Polis's first campaign for Congress in 2008, and later would help both Governors Hickenlooper and Polis state marijuana policy. And a final piece of context, she is one of Kay Anderson's mentors. So that should give you a little bit of an idea of what she does in terms of some of her political approach. And I wanted to set up that context, Jeff, because when we talk about Wanda James using her position as a CU Regent to try and advance her own career and her own business interests, and how that is because, or she's using the tool of accusations of racism to do it, it helps to give you a more complete picture as to some of the motivations in the story, because there is a campaign called T on THC that the University of Colorado School of Public Health was required by the state legislature in 2021 to do. This program to educate the public on the health impacts on particularly brain development and some other aspects of high-potency THC on the human development, especially on kids. And so this program got millions of dollars from the state marijuana tax fund to educate people. And one of the things that this included as a program was some diagrams or some drawings of a black baby in utero and a white baby in utero, and then their development over the years as they grow and the potential impact that marijuana can have on them and their development. Warnings for pregnant mothers as well as for children. And that to Wanda James was racist. And so she took to LinkedIn, to social media, and decried it as being racist, and said she had gone to Governor Polis's office and said, hey, we need to pull the funding for this T on THC program. And lo and behold, several days after she started making a stink, a letter was sent from the governor's budget director, former state Senate President Mark Ferrandino, requesting that they cut the entire funding for this program from the state, when just a handful of months ago in November, Jeff, they requested they just cut it down to $1 million. Now they wanted nothing. Now, the big thing is that the CU Board of Regents, the chair and the vice chair, a Democrat and a Republican respectively, both requested that the legal counsel look into it, and that's really what my column was about on Friday. But I'm going to stop there because that was a lot of info I threw at you, brother.
I appreciate the research you've done. You've outreached to the CU Regent Board. You've also outreached to Wanda herself and gotten a response. I mean, to me, And I think a lot of people, it looks like she's mixing both her financial interests and her leadership on the CU Region Board. And this was an important study. I remember this because the funding towards looking at most importantly, high THC concentrates and how they affect developing brains was a bipartisan bill because elected members on the progressive side, on the Democrat side, are watching marijuana destroy their own family members and their futures and communities. And so they wanted to look into this. This was a bipartisan effort to understand what we're doing, particularly to our kids with some high potency pot here in Colorado. And now it seems like, well, she got a little bit of an edge here. She's going to use her power to try to kill this research.
Yeah, that's the crux of the matter, is leveraging her position, and that gets to what the university counsel, the lead attorney for the CU system, was getting at in a memo he put together. So just to take a step back, not only was that bipartisan, that bill, it was veto-proof, which is something that Wanda James lamented, that Governor Polis couldn't have vetoed it even if he wanted to because it had such resounding support that they had a veto-proof majority. Now, that bipartisanship continues here, where Callie Renison, who is from Boulder, who is the Democrat chair of the Board of Regents, and Ken Montera, the vice chair of Colorado Springs, came together, and the two of them submitted a request to the university council to put this memo together. And the memo identified several policies that may have been violated, including regarding conflicts of interest and exercising undue influence. But they also, in a very interesting twist, he also identified a few statutory provisions, elements in the law that may have been violated, including one that stood out to me as someone who followed the Tina Peters case very closely. In her convictions, 3 of the 4 felonies she was convicted of were attempt to influence a public servant. That is one of the statutes that was identified in this memo as a possible violation by Wanda James in her conduct. Now, to be clear, this is not the results of an investigation. He is not drawing any conclusions, but raising for the regents at their request, hey, this might be the case, these different policy violations for the regents regarding conflicts of interest and other things, and these statutes that may be implicated here. And I'll just say one more thing is that I did reach out to both Wanda James as well as to Chair Renison and Vice Chair Montera, and the latter two stressed the bipartisan nature of their approach and what they're trying to do here, and walked through the timeline in such a way that it makes absolute sense for them to say, yeah, we have a fiduciary responsibility to look into this. Wanda James, of course, on the other side, called this a Republican-led smear campaign, even though it's a bipartisan leadership on the Board of Regents looking into this, and, of course, cried racism.
Well, we'll continue to track this. What's next for Wanda James and the CU Regent Board looking into this?
You know, it has been passed along to the State Ethics Commission as well as to the Attorney General's office. I don't expect that the Attorney General's office will act on it. The State Ethics Commission, I think, needs somebody to put in a formal request or formal complaint, so we'll see if that happens. And then I don't know what the jurisdiction is for a DA's office, if it needs to be Denver to look into this, or if it can be a DA in another county or judicial district. But I would surmise that there's at least the possibility, the prospect that you could see a district attorney look into the potential legal violations. In the meantime, we'll see what Wanda James decides to do. She certainly is somebody to spotlight things and make a big stink out of it. In fact, we only know about any of this because she made a big deal. She's only being presented with possible violations of policy and law because of how she approached this. So and I'll just say that this goes back years in terms of her attempts to really protect her brand and her business interests, and now she's using the University of Colorado Board of Regents to exercise that exact same thing.
Well, and I think people are rightfully concerned about marijuana. I've brought this up over and over again. The amount of people that die from drug overdoses, like fentanyl, meth, cocaine, whatever it might be, is about 100,000 in America. It's a terrible number. When you look at the number of people that die from tobacco related, it's 500,000. It's 5 times more. And the prime companies looking to buy up these marijuana companies are tobacco companies. So even the Democrats recognize there's concern around the marijuana industry. There needs to be more research. I'm glad it was a bipartisan bill, a veto-proof bill, as you pointed out, to do this type of research because, look, Colorado is first in on marijuana. We should be able to understand the impact, especially on youth, and their developing brains around this drug. So great research, Jimmy Sengenberger. I want to pivot now. Your latest article out 3 hours ago in the Denver Gazette, federal ruling exposes DPS's true motives. This is the legal battle between Denver Public Schools and ICE. You were in the courtroom. What did you see and hear last week?
Yeah, I'm very glad that I went into the courtroom on Friday because the judge did, and this is Judge Daniel Domenico, who happens to be a Trump appointee. He's somebody, also former Solicitor General for the state of Colorado, really savvy, thoughtful guy, and you could tell that when he did a rare ruling from the bench. In fact, he began this Friday hearing by saying, I wasn't originally planning to do a ruling or a hearing today, but I wanted to get some answers to some questions, so we're doing our hearing, and I think I'm going to have a bench ruling at the end. And that means where he doesn't just issue a written ruling, but he walks through from the bench his thinking and what conclusions he's reached. And basically what this case comes down to is Denver Public Schools sued the Department of Homeland Security, which of course includes ICE, claiming that a policy change from the Trump administration for this year in 2025 that provides more latitude and discretion to local ICE officials to make decisions as to whether to carry out operations or arrests at or near, more important piece, near schools, is that it was wrongly done and that they couldn't understand the thinking and that it violated the Administrative Procedures Act in changing the policy from 2021, where Biden's administration basically said, hey, if you want to go carry out any of these operations, you have to call national headquarters and get approval from them, which of course provides a significant restriction and a hassle for ICE to be able to do its job. So the Trump administration just did something absolutely reasonable. And so when you had this operation, this raid on Cedar Run Apartments in Denver, it was a mile or less from 4 or 5 different schools, and DPS made a big stink about it. Oh my gosh, look at what's going on because of Trump. Well, then a week later, they file in federal court saying, hey, we think this is something that needs to be stopped. We're requesting a preliminary injunction, a temporary restraining order. And that's where we get to this hearing. And the bottom line from the hearing is that the judge basically concluded, and this is the sentence that I think encapsulates it, Jeff. He said, if bus stops, which is another piece, not just schools that they talk about, if bus stops or all schools are included in the definition of protected area, as well as being anywhere near them, then the entire city would be covered, which exposes in a single sentence that this is really a backdoor attempt by DPS to handcuff immigration enforcement throughout Denver under the guise of student safety, and he saw right through the virtue signaling. Judge Domenico did.
Talking with Jimmy Sengenberger, he's a columnist for the Gazette. I mean, every bus stop? Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. If that's the motivation, then it's a blanket-wide ban on any type of ICE activity, let alone mass deportations, ICE activity in the city of Denver.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing that is just so important, that even John Fabricatori, of course, the former Denver ICE field director, made this point weeks ago to me. He said the policy was never about keeping ICE out of schools. It was about keeping ICE out of neighborhoods. And think about how many places, especially in Denver, but just about anywhere in the metro area, where you go and you have a school. You have bus stops. It's all over the place. Yeah. So, of course, it is going to be a massive impediment. But I think that the comments, statement made afterwards from DPS was particularly rich because they claimed credit for Judge Domenico basically saying, really, there's no fundamental difference between 2021 and 2025. It's more a matter of who's able to approve it so that you can have more operations in practice, and so that you can have more local discretion in making these decisions. Yet DPS claimed credit for revealing this somehow through their case, and also the school district emphasized that Judge Domenico acknowledged the real damages that public schools have suffered, except they forget conveniently the caveat that he said most of the harm that's alleged actually comes from elsewhere, that they can't directly trace it to anything to do with this particular Trump policy.
We're talking with Jimmy Sengenberger, a columnist for the Gazette. So what does DPS do from now, from here on out?
Well, there's not much they can do legally. They just maybe have to change their messaging, because here's the bottom line. They aren't having kids come in the classroom as much. There are a lot of illegal immigrant students who are making the decision not to go into school, and so their attendance is down, and so they're concerned about the possible impact on their bottom line, because enrollment is how you determine funding. You need kids in the classroom for enrollment. Now, that's not the same as attendance, but if this pattern continues into the next school year, then maybe they could see a monetary hit, which, by the way, money talks. So this is really what it comes down to, is money and virtue signaling. And I think if they want to keep the dollars, they're going to have to change the virtue signaling, because it is more than anything the false messages and the false impressions that raids are going to happen at schools, and the district itself has been helping to push that narrative, that is getting these kids to say, you know what, or their parents to say, we're not going to school, when, quite frankly, there aren't going to be raids on schools, Jeff. Just, in neighborhoods might happen at an apartment complex that, like this one did, might have, say, Tren de Aragua people in there.
Jimmy Sengenberger, he's a columnist with the Gazette. You got to follow him on X, and I believe your X is Seng Center. Is that right? SENGCENTER? Yes.
Sang with an E, not an A, Center. Yes, indeed.
Yep. Sang Center. Follow him on X and make sure that his column is part of your weekly reading routine. He's doing absolutely fantastic investigative work here in the state of Colorado. Jimmy, always great to hear from you. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Time.
Thanks, guys. Always fun.
All right, Billy, let's talk Colorado Wound Care. Wound Care Associates of Colorado.
I want to talk to you about Wound Care Associates of Colorado, a new advertiser here on the station. And you might have somebody in your family, a friend, or even yourself that has a diabetic ulcer, a pressure sore, a slow-healing cut, something like that. Now, that little tiny cut can turn into a very big deal, because that torn skin and tissue is a perfect place for dirt, germs, bacteria to enter your body. Now, normally, you can just ignore that. That's what you do when you were a kid. But as we get older, it can lead to an infection. Not fixing the problem can become a very big problem. Jennifer Walker, that started Wound Care Associates of Colorado, had that issue in her very family. Her uncle had some comorbidities, developed a small cut on his toe, and that led to an infection. He didn't get medical treatment right away, let it go, because he had other stuff he was dealing with, busy life and other medical things. And you figure a small cut, that'll eventually heal, right? Well, that's the thing that eventually took his life. The infection spread to a point that by the time he sought medical care, there was a larger infection in his foot. They had to take part of his foot, and that didn't stop it. The infection had spread to a significant place where it took his life several days later, just because of a small cut. It wasn't the comorbidities or other things that he was receiving medical care for. It was the cut that led to the end of his life. That's why you don't mess around with these things. Call Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Contact them through coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. What they'll do is they will set up a private, personalized session to set up a treatment plan in your own home. All of this care takes place in the comfort, convenience, and privacy of your home. No more transportation, getting to a wound care facility or a doctor's office, having to sit in the waiting room and then getting back into the room and all that time. They come right to your home, set up a personalized treatment plan, and will address your specific needs that will promote healing faster. That's what got Jennifer Walker's uncle into trouble, is that the cut wasn't healing. And there are a number of wound care facilities around Colorado that don't actually heal the wound. They just try to maintain the wound, meaning that torn skin tissue is still open and readily accepts all the dirt, germ, and bacteria that is around it. So don't go that way. Contact the real professionals, Wound Care Associates of Colorado at coloradowound.com. Get the treatment you need in the comfort, convenience, and privacy of your own home, and you will get improved healing outcomes because their certified nurse practitioner, wound certified nurse practitioner, will promote better healing to make sure that cut is healed and fixed. Ignoring the problem doesn't fix the problem. So don't ignore that problem any longer. Reach out to Wound Care Associates of Colorado at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. And when you do, tell me you heard about him here on the Jeff and Bill Show, please.
That's great to hear, Bill. We'll continue with phone calls and texts. You're welcome to join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Does it surprise you that Denver Public Schools was trying to argue every bus stop in the city of Denver and anything within a radius of it should be off limits to ICE, essentially blanketing the entire city of Denver from any type of ICE raids? Shocking to you? Is this what you expected, Denver Public Schools? To make you grateful for the defunding of the Department of Education? Feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Speaking of all-stars, Jimmy Sengenberger joined us to talk his latest out in the Denver Gazette. 3 hours ago, federal ruling exposes DPS's true motives. The motive being essentially, we want to stop any type of ICE activity, period, in the city, by claiming that even every bus stop and a radius around the bus stop needs to be protected from ICE raids, which would essentially blanket the entire city of Denver. It was exposed during a courtroom hearing last week. Jimmy was in the courtroom, has the latest, and joined us just a few minutes ago on the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's get reaction. Phone calls. Louis Aurora. Good morning, Louis. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, brothers. Listen, I was just thinking, do you think that Polis and Mike Johnson may have been involved in a backdoor situation? Because, you know, Pam Bondi is suing these states and these governors concerning hindering ICE from doing anything in their state. And I'm just thinking maybe Mike Johnson and his lousy performance in front of the committee and Polis not wanting ICE to do anything in our state. Maybe, do you think they had a backdoor issue joining with the school board?
Well, here's what I think is happening. Every progressive out there that believes in the Mike Johnston, Jared Polis worldview that illegal immigrants really haven't broken that great a law, warranted it enough to be automatically deported. The idea that they contribute to our communities, that they help our communities. You know, everything you saw from Mike Johnston's testimony last week. That type of worldview, I think every progressive is throwing every wrench they possibly can at ICE, at Donald Trump's administration, to try to slow, hinder, interfere, whatever possible. Just slow it down in any way possible. Donald Trump's work at mass deportations, and that's what you saw with this. I don't know if they're coordinated. I don't think there was memos sent, that type of thing. But I just think it's in the progressives' wheelhouse right now, in any way, fashion possible. Stop Donald Trump.
Right. Well, that came to my mind when I was listening to Jimmy. I said, maybe Polis, because again, Pam Bondi is suing these cities and these governors, and maybe they said, man, we can use the school board to try to, stop this from ICE doing what they need to do. So
it would make sense.
That was my thought.
It would make sense, Louis. I think they're all in it to try to stop Trump. I think that's their primary motivation. I don't think it's the people of Colorado and serving them as their top motivation. Louis, great call. Sure appreciate it. Louis's line will be open, 303-696-1971. We're talking Denver Public Schools seeking to identify every possible education-related thing at all, and then put a barrier around it for ICE activities, claiming to try to protect kids, but in reality, it would be a blanket ban on any type of ICE activities in the city of Denver. To Louis's point, it's probably another way they're trying to interfere with Trump's agenda. All right, look, for many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing, maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? Well, from Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Give them a call today at 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR, or simply visit advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Some news coming out of Aurora. Fox 31, Aurora police officers now authorized to start and stop pursuits in crime crackdown. The Aurora Police Department is sending a message to criminals by loosening its pursuit policy. The change went into effect on March 5th. Over the past several years, police have not engaged in pursuits for felony offenses like stolen vehicles. Aurora Police Chief Todd Chamberlain says it's time to hold criminals accountable. I think this is a much-needed change, says James Albee, law enforcement procedural expert. It's going to come down to some common-sense policing where officers are going to have to constantly be doing some risk assessments to determine whether or not pursuits need to continue or if it's going to be terminated. There's a lot of risk factors. But I guess they were prevented from doing these types of pursuits, and now they're opening that up and allowing them to make the choice if they want to do these types of authorized pursuits. Bill, good news for the city of Aurora, you think?
Yeah, it's up until they get sued for it, because that's going to happen. That'll happen. We are a litigious society, and we will sue for it because someone crashed in while they were speeding, etc., and didn't take the right, whatever it is, and so we'll sue them for it.
Well, I'm thrilled to see this. I think this is part of Danielle Jurinsky's and the mayor's leadership. She writes, the pursuit policy is back in place in Aurora. If you run from the cops, she says, you will be chased. Public safety has been and will continue to be a priority for me in Aurora. The residents and businesses deserve to feel and be safe. The days of running and getting away with crimes are over, says Danielle Jurinsky. So change is happening in the city of Aurora. Let's go to the phone lines. Don, Colorado Springs. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, Don.
Morning.
Hi. I'm really concerned about the Trump syndrome that the Democrats are carrying in. I can't help but think it's almost like the Hamas leaders and the Palestinians in that they're so focused on their hatred that nothing else reasonable comes into their mind. When Trump was standing up, when he was giving his speech, won't you join me in celebrating some of these positive things? They can't let go of their hate, and it overrides every other decision. And unfortunately, I don't see any way to break through that wall.
TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I remember it during the Bush days, Bush derangement syndrome as well. I think it just comes with the territory. Do you think we do it on the other side? Do you think conservatives get a little Biden derangement syndrome, Kamala derangement syndrome?
Oh, certainly. I think there's a few pockets, a few individuals, but it is not party-wide. It's not nearly as large as it is on them. It just, I don't see any good, reasonable behavior coming out of the Democratic Party anymore. But I don't know. We'll never win them over. Got to move on without them.
All right, Don, Colorado Springs. Sure appreciate the phone call. Well, it's been a wild show. We covered a whole lot of things today, from the CPB One app and its new iteration, helping facilitate your trip home and whether or not people will actually utilize it. We spoke with Ian Escalante, Executive Director of RMGO, on the latest happening down at the Colorado State Capitol. Matt Sharp, ADF Senior Counsel, on the latest law from Colorado, this unconstitutional law now working its way all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where I think it'll be found unconstitutional. We've had Jack Phillips. We've had Lori Smith. Now we'll have this case on counselors in the state of Colorado and the freedom of choice and freedom of speech that they have. We talked the student being deported from Colombia and whether or not that was right. And then Jimmy Sengenberger joined us. My, oh my, it was a wild show today. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Would love to have you download that there. We'll be back tomorrow. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk.